A desolate, snow-covered landscape unfolds beneath a starless night, with a single, imposing structure silhouetted against the cold air. Inside, a glass of red liquid shatters, its contents spilling across the floor. A hand, now stained with blood, trembles as Ian Page, the 8th class mage, realizes the horrifying truth. Even his power is useless against this poison. His face contorted in anguish, he can only lament that his magic should have been gone for only a minute. Kneeling before a roaring fire, the mage is confronted by Emperor Ragnar, who coldly declares, "And that's why you're nothing but a piece of trash now." Ragnar's stern gaze offers no comfort as Ian's mind races, desperately searching for a reason. The Emperor, holding a fresh glass, dismisses his unspoken plea, retorting that the answer should already be known. A dawning horror fills Ian's eyes as he finally comprehends the true target, his own power. He desperately tries to appeal to their shared past, reminding the Emperor that everything he did was for the Empire's future. But Ragnar remains unmoved, his gaze cold as he dismisses Ian's idealism, refusing to start a war for the sake of one life, calling him naive. The weight of Ragnar's words crushes Ian, leaving him to silently reflect on the things he was once told. His hands tremble in the darkness, a chilling realization dawning on him. He might never again wield the magic that defined his very being. The weight of those lost to his past actions crushes him, yet a defiant thought sparks within his mind, questioning if he's truly here to offer an apology. But even that flicker of defiance is swallowed by the harsh reality as the last vestiges of his power fizzle away into nothingness, a faint golden glow dissolving into the air. From above, the Emperor's cold voice cuts through the silence, confessing a profound fear of his former friend. He elaborates, his gaze unwavering. Ian's eyes widen in disbelief, the Emperor's words echoing in his mind. The 8th class magician had every right to be feared. The Emperor's gaze hardens, a chilling question hanging in the air. How could he allow such a monster to live, even if it was his old friend? With a final, twisted plea, the Emperor implores him not to forgive him for this ultimate betrayal. A single tear escapes Ian's eye, a silent testament to the crushing weight of his friend's words, his face contorted in a silent scream of agony. The Emperor turns his back, his form receding into the shadows, leaving Ian to collapse in despair. He falls amidst the crumbling architecture, the last remnants of his golden magic dissipating around him like dying embers. With a final, mournful whoosh, the golden particles vanish completely, leaving only a faint, ominous red glow in their wake. Engulfed by the flames of his own anguish, Ian Page lets out a pained cry, a single word echoing his profound sense of betrayal. With his anger intensifying, he curses the Emperor once more, admitting his past mistakes, yet a new determination settles upon him. The surrounding flames seem to mirror his growing resolve, as he tightens his hand, a silent promise taking shape within him. He understands that he cannot hesitate, determined not to become the person he once was, the one who permitted such deceit. Calling out the Emperor's name, he asserts his change, no longer the trusting mage he once was. Each falsehood, every manipulation, and every moment of his pain has ignited this fierce determination, and now, he promises to make Ragnar atone for all his wrongdoings. He grasps a powerful dagger, its blade emitting a strange glow, as it holds the soul of a fire mage within. A desperate strategy takes shape in his thoughts, a final, painful risk to recover his abilities, even if it grants him only a brief moment of magic. With firm determination, he directs the glowing blade towards his own chest, ready for the ultimate sacrifice. The dagger sinks in deeply, a grim sound accompanying the splash of blood as he pursues the redemption he yearns for. A raw, agonizing cry escapes his throat, the pain of the injury briefly overshadowing even his intense hatred. His body twitches, a choked gasp leaving him, as the repercussions of his desperate actions start to appear. As the raw power surged through him, he cried out, incanting ancient words, and a brilliant blue aura began to bloom around his form. The incantation deepened, and the ethereal blue energy swirled faster, pulling at the air around him. With each syllable, the magic intensified, and a maelstrom of glowing particles erupted from his body. A guttural scream tore from his throat, his face contorted in agony as the immense power coursed through his veins. Yet, through the pain, a fierce resolve burned in his eyes, his voice ringing with an unwavering declaration of his intent to set everything right. The blue light pulsed one last time, then slowly receded, leaving behind only shimmering motes of magic dancing in the air. Time passed, and he walked away from a somber grave, his silhouette stark against the fading light. The inscription on the stone confirmed the end of an era. Here lay Ragnar, the emperor whose ambition had led to his downfall. Later, within the grand halls of a castle, he stood by a towering window, gazing out at a world now reshaped by his actions, with a silent throne in the foreground. Outside, under a sky ablaze with the hues of sunset, crows perched on barren branches, their dark forms a stark contrast against the fiery backdrop. Flags fluttered in the gentle breeze, as the last rays of the sun cast long shadows over the land. And as the crows took flight, the sky, having witnessed both betrayal and rebirth, settled into twilight. After the previous events, he stands alone in a wide, sunlit field. while a flock of crows flies overhead, a scene that contrasts sharply with his recent experiences. An unsettling feeling stirs within him, a deep sense of unease beginning to spread. He clutches his chest, a soft sound of confusion leaving him, perplexed by the abrupt shift in his environment. He gasps, trying to understand what has just occurred. His thoughts confirm the obvious. Something unusual has indeed taken place. His eyes, filled with confusion, look around at his new, calm environment. Then, with a quick turn, he faces an unseen presence. Two figures, a young girl and a woman, stand before him, their voices expressing worry, asking if something is wrong or if an event has occurred. The woman reaches out, her hand gently taking his, a touch that brings an impossible sense of recognition. His eyes widen with disbelief and deep sorrow as he looks at the woman he recognizes as his deceased mother. Her grip tightens, holding him in this impossible reality, leaving him silent and questioning his understanding of the world. Ian's thoughts churn, questioning if this encounter with his mother is a dream or perhaps a descent into the underworld. He finds himself as a child, walking hand in hand with her through a tranquil setting. The peace is abruptly broken by a distant shout, echoing through the village. He and his mother move with a stream of other villagers, all heading in the same direction. Armored knights stand guard, systematically guiding the people. The village, once calm, now feels unsettled, a quiet disturbance hanging in the air. A memory surfaces of a white flag flying from the ivory tower, a sign that he has somehow returned. As if reaching for something lost, he understands the profound shift. He has been sent back, precisely 20 years into the past. The young Ian stands by himself, a silent witness to a past that is now his present. He finds himself reflecting on the immense journey he has undertaken, having returned 30 years further into the past than he had ever anticipated. This return was only possible through the mastery of the dragon's language, the very foundation of all magic, a power that grants its descendants limitless magical potential. He recalls the arduous years spent mastering time magic, a desperate gamble that had finally paid off in his last moments, just before death claimed him. The memories flood back, of a time when he was the only one capable of facing the monstrous orcs, a burden that led to countless sacrifices, even from innocent children caught in a war of loyalty. He remembers how his entire life had been consumed, used up, only to end in a brutal death. But this time, a fierce resolve burns within him. He will not allow history to repeat itself. With a fierce resolve in his golden eyes, he stands beside his mother, stating that this new life will be different, a future he intends to shape himself. He understands that to achieve his goals, he must first find what he seeks, a task he promises to complete, assuring he will return. Leaving his home behind, he begins his journey, a young man destined to wield the power of an 8th-class magician, and potentially even greater abilities. His path soon crosses with a distinguished figure, Sir Aaron, who introduces himself as a member of the Magicians' Alliance, his presence hinting at the larger magical world Ian is about to encounter. A knowing smile spreads across Aaron's face as he recognizes the young man as Vanessa's son, a connection that immediately suggests a shared past. Unfazed by the recognition, Ian simply tells him to enter, his keen perception having already noticed Aaron's attempts to hide. Aaron's composure falters for a moment, a brief look of surprise crossing his face at the young man's unexpected observation. As they move deeper into the facility, Ian asks about available rooms, expressing thanks for the temporary stay, indicating his journey is just starting. Approaching a door, he politely announces his presence, preparing to see what is inside. Upon entering the Magicians' Alliance, a man greets him with a simple, "Hi, kid," his demeanor calm and authoritative, causing a slight nervousness to stir within the young man. The man then asks, "Will you lower your head first?" He clarifies his intention to perform a diagnostic. "I'm going to stimulate your head with mana. You might get a bit dizzy." But quickly adds that the sensation will pass, but it's only temporary, so don't worry. Sir Aaron then gently places his hand on the young man's head, beginning the diagnostic process. A moment later, a look of satisfaction crosses Ian's face as he quietly says, "Nice." Aaron then asks him to turn around. "Now turn your back towards me," to continue the assessment. With a thoughtful expression, the magician shares an important finding. "I just found a mana brain inside your head. It means that you might become a magician in your entire life." He then adds, suggesting further potential, "If there's a mana heart inside your chest," allowing the statement to resonate. Ian's gaze becomes focused, a spark of resolve appearing in his eyes as he contemplates his future. Simply joining the alliance may not be his ultimate goal. He then speaks to the magician, a slight hesitation in his tone. Magician, there's something I need to show you." He closes his eyes, preparing to demonstrate his abilities, a quiet determination settling upon him. His mind considers a crucial question. Should I try being more aggressive? A subtle energy begins to emanate from him, suggesting a hidden strength. Ian Page, the young mage, conjures a fireball, its orange glow illuminating his surroundings as flames dance around his form. As the fire manifests, Sir Aaron observes, his expression shifting to surprise at the sight of a fireball. The older mage watches, astonished, as water droplets and ice begin to form, glowing with a soft blue light. With both elements now surrounding him, Ian stands, having achieved what seems to be double casting. Magical energy crackles around his feet, then moves up his body, a clear display of power. He glances down, beginning to explain, but a narration box explains that he was suddenly able to perform this, leaving Sir Aaron and the others present in shock as a magical surge occurs. Aaron, still processing the event, can only ask, what? Ian turns his head, answering the question of whether he was taught this. No, that never happened. Aaron's eyes begin to glow with a blue light, and a faint magical sound is heard, as he asks Ian, is that true? Ian looks down, his expression changing slightly, as he realizes Aaron is using detection magic to check if he is lying, still suspicious. Aaron's gaze remains steady, his voice firm, as he warns, if you're lying, you must become a criminal. As the implications of Sir Aaron's warning sink in, he remembers a past threat, a grim reminder of the potential repercussions for his family. The memory grows stronger, showing a situation where even their neighbors could suffer, but a thought of defiance crosses his mind as he recalls the detection magic, not finding anything. A quiet hush forms in his thoughts, a secret that the detection spell missed, his true abilities still concealed. A sudden, intense memory startles him, a loud cry echoing in his thoughts. His eyes open wide, showing the shock of a past event, as the memory fully emerges. In the memory, his mother pleads with Sir Aaron, her voice shaking as she asks him to change his mind. She points out the boy's quietness, while Aaron, firm in his stance, states that being a magician means 7 years of loneliness, a difficult truth he speaks with determination. His mother argues against the harshness of the situation, saying that such strong magic is too rare and important to be thrown away, but Aaron quickly interrupts her. A sudden, sharp sound breaks the tense conversation, as the mother looks at her son, worried, and asks what is wrong. The young boy stays quiet, looking down, a heavy thump sound marking the moment, while his mother keeps asking about his sadness. With a last, strong thump, the young Ian looks up, his face showing both fear and a new understanding. Even though he was meant to be a strong magician, at that moment, he was just a child, and this important event made him and his parents become nobles. A stern voice declares that challenging the emperor's authority is a crime punishable by death. And the guard, hearing this, lets out a choked gasp, his face showing clear fear. He immediately drops to his knees, pleading for mercy, begging for another chance as young Ian Page stands over him. The boy's gaze remains steady, his expression firm, showing no sign of forgiveness. The guard's face shows deep distress, his eyes wide with fear. He continues to plead, admitting his grave sin and asking for another chance, while Ian's mother watches with a concerned expression. She glances at her son, a silent question in her eyes, but he remains firm. With a decisive gesture, Ian tells the guard to listen, his hand moving with authority. He repeats the seriousness of the situation, reminding the trembling man that challenging the emperor's authority is a crime he knows well, his words carrying significant weight. Ian then leans closer, his voice becoming a chilling whisper, promising to report the guard's actions to the princess if he doesn't cooperate. His eyes glow with an intense, electric blue light, showing his power, as he gives his final warning, I'll be watching. Completely defeated, the guard bows deeply, his head nearly touching the ground, offering a desperate, thank you, magician, in response. A young Ian Page, still a child, receives a message, with a voice stating, thank you for helping me. The man, a mage from the Ivory Tower, clarifies his purpose, explaining that it's the Ivory Tower's job to protect a magician. He then promises further communication, declaring, I'll give you further notice through the crystal ball. A hint of concern in his tone, he inquires about Ian's destination. Let me guess, you're going to a place where US knights are present. Will that be all right? Later, Ian stands with his mother, a quiet moment before a startling revelation. His mother, taken aback, questions him, HUH, what is happening? You're a magician? To which he calmly replies, yeah, that's what they said. Aaron, observing the young prodigy, muses on his extraordinary potential, remarking, that much talent and intelligence at such a young age. Under the cover of night, a quiet town rests, oblivious to the impending confrontation. Suddenly, a figure emerges, his voice betraying surprise and irritation. Ugh, too. Aaron, his face contorted in anger, curses the damned old man and dismisses the protagonist as only a magician, yet so cheeky. He vows that the magician will soon receive his reward, a chilling promise hanging in the air. Confident in his power, Aaron believes his spell should be enough to paralyze his opponent, but Ian Page's eyes narrow, a dangerous question escaping his lips. What did you say about my mother? The air crackles with tension as Ian Page's resolve hardens, promising to make Aaron pay for that. A narration box reminds us of the fundamental truth of this world. That's what magic does. Aaron, seemingly unfazed by the threat, repeats his provocative question, what did you say about my mother? He then scoffs, dismissing Ian Page's mother as a lowly commoner, a sneer twisting his features. Ian Page lets out a pained grunt, his body reacting to an unseen force, as a narration box declares, today, you will regret your arrogance. He observes a dangerous, abandoned street within the capital, recalling a past incident. He remembers losing his footing at the critical moment. Under the full moon, his thoughts become clear. He questions the act of stomping on his own mother's pride. The weight of his choices is heavy, having turned his back on the right people and let go of the wrong ones. He feels the indelible blood on his hands, but is determined to do whatever he can. He is willing to become a demon to gain the necessary strength. His eyes glow with a brilliant blue as he declares, "I, Mage Ian," and offers forgiveness. He reflects on the one who abandoned him and the words Ragnar once spoke. A vague understanding begins to form in his mind. The scene shifts to a quiet building. Inside, he acknowledges the urgent need to recover his mana after being paralyzed. His younger self, a small boy, looks at his hands, wishing for his body to grow up quickly. A soft rustling sound accompanying his thoughts. As he stands by his sick mother's bedside, a sad memory. Her weak form lies still, and he whispers a single, desperate word. Years later, he remembers the fleeting triumph of becoming a first-class magician after only 1 year at the Magic Academy. A victory overshadowed by the sad truth that his mother, left alone at the Mulan estate, died from an illness. He couldn't be there for her last moments or give her the wealth he had promised. He remembers a serious promise he made to her, to protect her throughout his life. A promise that now feels like a cruel joke, as her weak voice asks a question he cannot answer. His younger self, full of desperate hope, had begged her to live long, to stay with him. But the bitter truth remains, he couldn't even protect his own mother, let alone himself, in that previous, messy life, where he was unable to protect anyone or anything. The Emperor considers the tower owner's motivations, pondering what they truly desire. He reflects on mana, describing it as a spirit that circulates throughout one's blood. However, the discussion turns to the practicalities of magic, as Aaron, an 8th-class magician and chief of the Imperial Court, contributes to the conversation. The Emperor listens carefully, as the conversation continues to delve into complex magical concepts. He emphasizes the core principle, that mana is a spirit continuously flowing through the blood. The real difficulty, he clarifies, is stimulating the mana brain using specific techniques, which enables a person to control that spirit at will, thereby earning the title of magician. This involves mastering the methods of manifesting magic, a skill that is not easily acquired. Aaron notes that these advanced techniques are typically not taught at the academy, given that even the earliest magicians found it difficult to reach an 8th-class level. However, a surprising detail emerges. They assert that they were instructed by the first magician, a legendary figure. In a flashback, a young Ian Page, long before his current challenges, struggles to perceive the flow of mana, his hands emitting a faint glow as he practices magic in the darkness, without the aid of natural light. Returning to the present, the Emperor considers the legend, recognizing it as a tale among magicians, yet affirming that the first magician's existence is an undeniable truth. He states that dragons are merely illusions, but the first magician's existence is a serious and undeniable fact. He then asks a crucial question: why would such a powerful individual require a successor, particularly if they possess the ability to create magic from nothing, a power that surpasses even that of deities? He considers the implications of the magician's dispatch to the front lines, knowing the Type 1 order has been given. A dangerous situation, he muses, feeling as if they are already on the brink of disaster, a subtle humph escaping his lips. With a determined expression, he walks past grand, closed doors within the imperial palace. His steps echo through the opulent halls, his gaze fixed forward. The heavy doors swing open before him, revealing another section of the palace. He continues his measured pace, a soft humph, accompanying his thoughts as he moves deeper into the imperial chambers. Suddenly, a voice from off-panel addresses him, asking if he had been called by his father. Ragnar responds with a respectful nod, confirming he was indeed summoned and apologizing for any delay. The unseen voice dismisses his apology, then inquires about the matter at hand. His father then instructs him, suggesting he should go visit the outside for a moment. Ragnar's eyes widen slightly in surprise, seeking clarification on whether this means he is to stay outside the imperial palace. His father confirms, adding that he will be assigned the secondary imperial guard, 300 imperial knights, and 3 high-class magicians for this task. Examining the document, Emperor Ragnar notes the instruction to retrieve Ian Page, prompting a thoughtful expression. He sighs, acknowledging that the name Ian Page is still unfamiliar to his father, a detail he quickly dismisses. His father, however, threatens to assign the task to another prince, prompting Ragnar to protest vehemently. With renewed determination, he insists on being assigned the task. He confidently declares his intention to complete the mission without error. His father agrees, cautioning him to be careful, and Ragnar bows in acceptance. A hand taps a document, finalizing the decision. He then informs Aaron that he has already begun preparations, a statement that elicits a question from the magician. Aaron explains his preparations, noting his dislike for going outside and the need to personally manage the magicians. The Emperor laughs, agreeing with Aaron's reasoning. Ragnar then dismisses Aaron, signaling the end of their conversation. The two men walk through the palace. Elsewhere, a younger man addresses an older figure, asking if he intends to return to the ivory tower. The older man, without hesitation, declines. Walking through a grand hall, the older man states that he has a brief stop to make before continuing his journey. A large, ornate building stands, its presence suggesting importance as a sound of impact is heard. Inside, political movements are underway, with the Sword Tower and Magic Tower expected to act soon. While Ian Page, the young magician, is deep in thought, considering the future. He walks, reflecting on a past decision, aware that the future will be challenging and require careful navigation. And his determination strengthens as he considers who might be pulling the strings. In another room, Emperor Ragnar stands, a talented ruler capable of overcoming the weaknesses of Prince Ragnar, who is considered the most powerful among the common people. This dynamic, with a powerful emperor and a popular prince, is predicted to create conflict between the royal family and the Magic Tower. Alone again, the magician considers which side to support, the emperor or the prince, recognizing that his own power, potential, and wealth are now his to control. With a determined look, he states his intention. He will not be manipulated by anyone. Later, Aaron, the magician, gives him permission to continue, acknowledging his next steps. He stands, holding a glowing blue orb, as armored soldiers approach, indicating a formal summons. A formal announcement rings out, declaring, Empire's magician Ian Page, heed to the Majesty's calling. He reacts with visible surprise. A look of concern crosses his face as he processes the Emperor's summons. He questions internally, Majesty's calling? The Emperor's actions are proceeding more quickly than expected. He utters a surprised OH as the situation becomes clearer. Aaron, the messenger, calmly instructs him, as Majesty has ordered me to do. I'll then tell you the royal family has been waiting for you, as he kneels. The instructions continue, detailing the formal protocol. Kneel down on your right knee, and put your hand on the left side of your heart. He complies, kneeling on his right knee with his left hand over his heart, following the formal instructions. Aaron observes him, thinking, it's not the first time he's doing this pose. Noting the young mage's familiarity with the ritual. Holding the glowing orb, Aaron gives the final instruction, head to the Majesty's calling, directing the young mage. A faint blue aura surrounds Aaron, his expression resolute as he prepares for what is to come. He declares, the Emperor wants to see the magician's power. I will show the Emperor the true power of the Magic Tower, asserting his intent. The Emperor's summons arrived, inviting Ian Page to accompany the Imperial Prince and other magicians on his journey. He paused, considering the invitation. His gaze sharpened, as he understood the Emperor's true intentions. A slight smirk appeared on his face, indicating his understanding. Outside, a knight asked if he could take the mage to the Lord's castle, and was told he could. A boot steps forward, as the escort prepares to move. Aaron, the head of the Imperial Magic Tower, introduced himself to the knights, explaining that he was sent by the Emperor to escort the prince to the capital. The knight confirmed that he would safely escort him to the Lord's castle, and they would depart when ready. The city's buildings stood tall as the journey continued. From the palace, someone spots the approaching group, remarking on his presence. A man named Roi warns Margaret to be careful with what she says. He continues, stressing that the magician must be treated with respect. The noble Roi and the elegant Margaret stood, their attention drawn to a figure approaching the palace. The individual they observed was Ian Page, a magician whose presence was now noted throughout the imperial capital. Though he appeared young, he was recognized as the Empire's magician, a position of significant influence. His exceptional talent had not only secured his title, but also garnered the personal interest of the Emperor, a notable achievement. Roi, considering the situation, determined that establishing a friendly relationship with the Empire's magician would be a beneficial course of action. Ian's youthful appearance, with his ash-blonde hair and blue eyes, concealed the significant power he possessed and the attention he now attracted. In another part of the palace, a servant inquired of a colleague if they had observed the young magician in the training grounds. The other servant responded with astonishment, describing how he had been creating fire with his bare hands. It was agreed that he was indeed impressive, having spent 15 consecutive days in the training grounds, and was likely still there, practicing his abilities. Standing alone in an open area, Ian's gaze was distant, reflecting the responsibilities that came with his abilities. With a quick movement, he extended a hand, and a subtle glow began to appear from his fingertips. Then, with a sudden release of energy, he cast a frost nova, a powerful burst of ice and cold. He extends his hands, and a brilliant blue light erupts from his palms as he unleashes an ice spell. With a sharp, crackling sound, ice shards burst forth, rapidly expanding to cover the area. The frigid expanse spreads relentlessly, transforming the air into a frozen landscape. Finally, the spell culminates, encasing the magician himself within a crystalline prison of his own making. A weary sigh escapes him as he emerges, his expression showing the immense mana expenditure required for such a feat. He muses on his past life, remembering a time when he could have frozen not just the training grounds, but the entire castle of Moglian with a single thought. This current body, however, is severely limited, and he desperately needs something to compensate for his lack of mana. Meanwhile, in a bustling town square, two frantic figures, an older, distinguished man and a younger, anxious one, cry out for help, desperately calling for a magician. Their pleas grow more urgent, begging for assistance with a dire matter. The older man reveals the shocking news: their lord has gone missing. His face etched with worry, the older man's brow furrows deeply as he delivers the grave tidings. The younger man echoes the disbelief, his eyes wide with concern at the mention of their missing lord. As the young mage reflects on the unfolding political landscape, a subordinate reports that a key figure, the great lord, has not returned to his estate, instead choosing to roam the capital for a while. Despite deploying all available manpower to locate him, their efforts have been unsuccessful, only now confirming his exact location. Ian, however, senses a deeper game at play, believing it is not yet time for the great lord to make his move, a sentiment he keeps to himself. A chilling prophecy unfolds. Right before the War of Unification begins, the great lord will become emperor, allowing his armored division to join the war. But the vision darkens further, revealing that his son, Ian Magillion, will abandon his territory and run away when the war begins. This act of desertion will lead to his execution, a fate Ian questions, asking his subordinate, "Don't you think?" The subordinate, however, advises that magicians are better off not knowing such grim futures. Ian ponders the implications, wondering if the great lord's unusual movements, such as his regular hunting trips, might be a low-probability consequence of his own return. Meanwhile, in a different chamber, another official confirms that the great lord is currently outside the territory, engaged in other missions. Back with Ian, the question echoes in his mind. Could his very presence be the cause of these unfolding events? He knows it is highly unusual for a district magician to leave their assigned territory, and though the exact details remain elusive, he is certain it is all connected to him. With a subtle glow emanating from his hand, Ian acknowledges his most potent weapon, the ability to predict the future. This power allows him to see how even the slightest alterations can dramatically change the course of destiny. He states his intention to give up a particular weapon, saying, "I will lose that weapon." Explaining that the situation is beyond their control, he then asks for the location of something, saying, "There is nothing more we can do about it. And that's why I'm here to ask for, where is it?" His determination firm, he agrees to help with the search, stating, "I will cooperate in the search." As he walks, his thoughts convey a strong resolve to prevent a specific outcome, believing, "We must prevent this from happening no matter what." A worried voice calls out to Ian, asking him about what happened. His mother expresses her concern, stating he's going to the mountains with the search team. With a worried expression, she asks if it isn't too dangerous. She tells him he's too young for such things, but he responds that he is a magician now. Still, she expresses her worry, not wanting him to come back hurt. Left alone, his mother's face shows deep distress, her hands clasped together. A tear falls as she makes a desperate plea. She begs him to find them, and if he does, to tell them that she is sorry. A voice from off-panel makes her react with surprise, her eyes widening. Ian's voice confirms he will find them, and she asks, her voice filled with hope, if he really will. A question hangs in the air, asking about the ring he wears and if it can be borrowed. He lifts his hand, revealing the ring, and explains that he senses mana from it. He gently places the ring onto her hand, telling her it will help him find them. The golden ring now rests on her finger. He looks down at her with a gentle expression. A faint blue glow surrounds his hand as he prepares to leave. This is the Wulon ring, described as a low-rank artifact that requires time to increase its mana capacity. She looks at the ring on her finger, a soft sob escaping her, as she considers if this gift is meant for a daughter rather than an heir. With renewed determination, she agrees to borrow the ring, understanding its purpose. He clarifies that the ring will compensate for her own limited mana. With a rustle of his cloak, he walks away from the grand building, passing the silent guards. He speaks a simple command, signaling his departure. The journey continues into a dense, green forest. A guard indicates their position, stating that they have arrived, with bloodstains on the forest floor revealing where they lost the trail. He questions the guards, asking if they checked among the casualties. But the guards report that no one was found, suggesting they were likely consumed by monsters. Only the remains of a few dead goblins are left at the scene. As he realizes the scale of the attack, hundreds of goblins, but resolves to find them missing before it's too late. A thought strikes him as he looks at the ring on his finger, leading him to consider using summoning magic to call forth a wolf spirit. He begins to cast the summoning spell, mana gathering around him. And the magic circle glows brightly, its intricate patterns illuminating the forest floor. A powerful magical aura emanates from the circle, completing the summoning. As the summoning circle glowed with blue light, Ian looked at the creature appearing before him. A large, ethereal wolf spirit was taking shape, making him wonder if this was indeed the spirit he had summoned. With a thud, a large, furry paw, surrounded by blue energy, landed on the ground, showing the spirit's size. However, as the summoned creature fully appeared, a small, very cute white wolf with large, innocent eyes and a wagging tail stood there, looking nothing like a fearsome beast. Looking down at the cute creature, Ian could only say, "Whoa." He remembered the much larger wolf spirit he had summoned in his past life, which was very different from this small one. He let out a sigh, the memory of his past power showing how little mana he had now. Despite the unexpected result, Ian remained determined, knowing that his current mana limited the size of his summons. He turned to the small wolf and gave it a direct command, telling the spirit to find the missing villagers. The wolf spirit seemed to understand, looking where Ian pointed, while three shadowy figures watched from the edge of the forest, unnoticed by Ian as he thought about the magician involved. He repeated his urgent need for the wolf spirit's help, his voice showing his desperation to find the missing people, even as the small creature looked up at him with a questioning look. Suddenly, a chilling screech sounded, as a monstrous, red, clawed hand appeared, suggesting a new, scary threat was nearby. He plunges his blade into a goblin, its green hide no match for his swift attack, as the forest around them erupts with the guttural cries of more of the monstrous creatures. As more of the creatures swarm, his companion voices concern, wondering what their next move should be against the overwhelming numbers. The forest echoes with the guttural cries of countless goblins, their sheer numbers threatening to overwhelm their defenses. Elsewhere, a grimace of pain crosses the face of the Emperor, a fresh wound marring his brow as he struggles against an unseen foe. A desperate command rings out, urging the others to fall back to the castle while they hold the line against the relentless horde. But the situation is dire, and the order is quickly countermanded. They cannot retreat any further. Suddenly, a monstrous, clawed green hand bursts from the foliage, its grotesque fingers reaching out with terrifying speed. The Emperor turns, his expression etched with alarm as he senses the new, immediate threat closing in. A desperate cry of "Father" escapes Ian's lips as the massive limb descends with crushing force. The air is rent by a terrifying roar as a colossal goblin reveals itself, its eyes burning with malevolent red light. "Father!" Behind, Ian screams, his voice filled with urgent warning. The Emperor's eyes widen in horror as he glances over his shoulder, realizing the true scale of the danger bearing down on him. The atmosphere grows heavy, a quiet tension preceding an imminent attack. Suddenly, a powerful ice spell, a frost nova, manifests as sharp, blue shards of ice. The spell impacts with a loud crack, creating an explosion of ice and sound. An injured man flinches from the impact, his expression showing clear distress. Ice cracks and splinters underfoot, a testament to the spell's widespread effect. In the icy aftermath, Aaron and Ian observe the scene, taking in the extent of the attack. Not far away, Emperor Ragnar falls to his knees, visibly affected by the powerful spell. The injured man's eye shows the lingering pain and shock from the assault. Emperor Ragnar stays on his knees, his head still bowed in clear distress. Ian reacts with a gasp, his face showing deep concern for the unfolding events. From his position on the ground, Emperor Ragnar speaks, his voice filled with worry as he mentions that child. The injured man's face shows continued pain and distress from the recent assault. A voice calls out, filled with concern. As Margaret looks on with a troubled expression, she murmurs a name, then questions what has happened, trying to comprehend the situation. Turning to the Emperor, she asks for an explanation. While Ian rests in bed, having been brought back to safety, Margaret reflects on her brother, a gifted magician in a family without magical abilities. A retainer enters, expressing his relief. Glad to see Ian conscious, but immediately inquiring about the others who were present last night. He notes that Sir Rotten has not yet returned, then asks about the whereabouts of the magician. The Emperor, looking worried, states that he must see the situation for himself. A voice urgently calls out, "Sir Magician," as the young man, Ian, stands quietly in a room. Finding him at last. After confirming his recovery, Hua then says, "I heard that the Lord has woken up," and Ian replies gratefully, "Yes, it's all thanks to you, Sir Magician." Turning slightly, Hua explains his task. "I have been waiting for you to bring you over to the reception room by my lord." He adds, suggesting the Emperor's wishes, "I believe he wants to speak to you about." Ian listens carefully, his face thoughtful as he considers the upcoming meeting. Soon, Hua leads Ian into the reception room, where the Emperor greets them kindly. "Oh, welcome." The Emperor then asks Ian directly, with real concern, "How do you feel?" Ian bows respectfully and says, "I express my sincere gratitude for all of your help." The Emperor addresses Ian Page, recognizing his service and his contribution to the Empire. He then states that he has chosen a token to express his thoughts. A small, decorative box is placed on the table, containing the token he mentioned. Ian looks at the box with surprise, and the Emperor instructs him to take it. Ian takes the box, and the Emperor mentions that Margaret had informed him about it. The Emperor explains that the ring possesses the ability to amplify mana, and it was very helpful during the campaign against the goblins. He then asks if the ring will be useful to the young magician. He repeats that the ring can amplify mana and was very helpful in the goblin campaign. The Emperor clarifies that it is a relic, given as a token of his esteem. Ian, still surprised, questions if it is truly a token. The Emperor then formally announces that from this day, Ian Page will be recognized as the Empire's honorary mage, and the ring is a token of this appointment. With a determined look, Ian accepts the token and the title. The Emperor's voice resonated through the hall, promising a reward for the one who had saved his family. And he continued, extending an open invitation and pledging unwavering support to Sir Ian Page, assuring him that any request for assistance would be met. Ian listened intently, the weight of the Emperor's words settling upon him as he reaffirmed their eternal loyalty. With a final, resolute declaration, the Emperor sealed the pact, vowing to honor the profound promise made to Sir Ian after his heroic deeds. Soon, the formal halls were left behind, replaced by the rustling leaves of a vast forest as the journey took a different path. A contingent of soldiers marched steadily through the verdant landscape, their armor glinting faintly under the dappled sunlight. Among them, the captain turned to Ian, inquiring about their proximity to the northern town of Lloyd. He confidently assured his lord that they would reach their destination once they crested the next hill, the journey nearing its end. Ian, deep in thought, considered his next move, a subtle determination etched across his features. Addressing the captain, he posed a crucial question, seeking knowledge of a skilled alchemist, someone renowned for their exceptional craft. The captain pondered for a moment, then recalled a name, revealing that in the northern town of Lloyd, an alchemist named Redho was known for his expertise. Ian acknowledged the captain's assessment, confirming the necessity of his northern detour, all for the sake of a very special item. A report comes in, and he reflects on a name, one he had never heard in his past life. A name he hopes to replace with a new alias, to complete his identity. The scene then shifts to a desperate call. Captain, Sir Magician. As a village is consumed by fire, smoke billowing into the sky. A younger version of him, with a focused expression, observes the unfolding disaster, while the captain and his guards look on in alarm at the destruction. A moment of stark silence falls, before he, the captain, and other villagers are seen running, pushing through the panicked crowd, with someone exclaiming about their slow pace and urging them to move. A man with a beard and an eye patch watches the chaos with concern, just as a goblin attacks, lunging towards the young magician, prompting a desperate cry of "No!" The bearded man reacts with a pained gasp and an "Hello." Yet, the young magician's expression becomes resolute, preparing himself for the confrontation. An older man, his expression hardened, lifts a crude weapon, preparing to strike. He swings the weapon, and with a dull thud, blood splatters. A young boy cries out, recoiling from the impact and clutching his head. Before the boy can recover, the older man grabs him, and the boy struggles against his hold. The boy cries out, calling for his father, but the man dismisses him as an annoying child, telling him to be quiet and die. The boy's face twists, his eyes wide with shock and fear. The older man then pulls out a knife, threatening to sell the boy to slave traders, emphasizing his particular target. He holds the knife menacingly, its sharp edge pointed towards the terrified boy. The boy's face is a mask of terror, his mouth open in a silent scream. His expression shifts, from terror to a deep, overwhelming despair. The older man's hand, gripping the knife, descends swiftly, a blur of motion and impending violence. The older man attacks the boy, the scene a violent, bloody blur as the knife finds its target. The traumatic memory persists, focusing on the young boy's face as he endures his ordeal. Tears fall down his blood-stained cheek, and his eyes, now a deep purple, convey the immense fear and hopelessness he feels. A single tear falls from his eye, which glows with an unusual purple light, as he appears to be in great pain. His hand, marked with blood, shakes, showing the difficult fight he has recently experienced. With a soft thud, his foot lands on the ground, suggesting a fall or collapse. A group of villagers nearby looks on in shock, one man asking, "What was that? Was it ice?" Their worried voices fill the air. The villagers begin to scream, their fear clear as one man shouts, while another tries to quiet him, saying, "It's too loud." During the confusion, a robed person is forcefully thrown through the air. Then, sudden darkness. A short time later, a single figure stands against the wide, calm sky, on a far-off cliff with a beautiful view. Ian Page, now wearing a traveler's cloak, looks back with a tired sigh, his journey continuing as he moves through this new place. Under his feet, a faint magical circle shines, showing that the powerful spell or teleportation that brought him here was successful. It's effective. Following a traumatic magical event, Ian Page awakens in what appears to be his past, his magical abilities significantly diminished, a ring on his finger now restricting his mana capacity to that of a third-class magician. He finds himself on the ground, amidst the remnants of an unseen struggle, his eyes drawn to another person lying still beside him. Standing up, the young man's thoughts are a whirlwind as he attempts to understand his current situation. He approaches a young man in armor, inquiring with concern about the condition of the soldiers. He feels a sense of relief at the answer, learning that they are safe. However, a more profound worry remains as he ponders the survival of everyone else. Abruptly, a recognizable voice calls out, startling him. He turns to face his father, Emperor Ragnar, and a single word escapes him, urging him to leave the area. He finds himself before a magician, who, observing his state, states he will examine him, a sudden exclamation escaping his lips. The magician's eyes fall upon the young man, who, still processing his transformation, can only return his gaze in quiet bewilderment. A look of deep concern crosses Aaron's face as he comprehends the gravity of the situation, his mind turning to the soul's curse, a disease caused by mana that enters the body and consumes the soul, causing hair to whiten and ultimately leading to death, if not addressed. Ian, suspecting malicious intent, states his belief that a magician intentionally caused this curse, and Aaron, confirming the severe diagnosis, agrees that the symptoms are quite serious. Without delay, Aaron takes Ian's hand, and a flow of pure mana passes between them as he initiates the only known way to temporarily ease the curse, injecting pure mana to release the trapped energy, a procedure that causes Ian to cry out. The powerful magical transfer causes Aaron to flinch, the effort of handling such strong energies visible on his face, even as he proceeds with the careful treatment. As the immediate pain lessens, Aaron looks up, confused, only for Ian to earnestly ask him, pleading for him to provide the same treatment to his father, and expressing his deep thanks. A gentle touch to Aaron's arm emphasizes the sincerity of Ian's request, a quiet sign of his desperation. His gaze fixed on the horizon, a deep concern visible on his young face, Ian can only ponder, will his father, Emperor Ragnar, truly recover? He was once the Emperor's personal mage and most trusted advisor, and his appearance here suggests more complex events within the palace. His presence, a ghost from the past, brings Ian back to when he was 6 years old, a time marked by his mother's death from the soul's curse. Even then, the respected alchemist, Douglas Heyman, was a figure of great importance, receiving many offers from various kingdoms. He spoke of a hero, a legendary figure searching for something far to the north, a desperate hope in his voice. But even then, the harsh truth was clear. The soul's curse was a poison that could not be cured by magic, a fact Douglas seemed to struggle with. The memory of that incurable illness, the feeling of helplessness, still burned within him, a constant reminder of his mother's declining health. He couldn't just stand by and watch her die, a strong determination growing in his young heart. Whispering her name, a silent promise formed on his lips. He would find a way. With a determined step, the young boy walked away from his sick mother, a faint glow of magic around him as he began his urgent search. Later, in the forest, Douglas offered a small hope, saying there was still a chance to save their village, and Ian, holding a flower, stated his belief that he could cure his mother when he found the special flower. But he couldn't wait any longer, the thought that she would die if he didn't find the flower soon driving his urgent search. He remembered his father's gentle, yet sad, command to his mother. Sleep, a word that hinted at her coming death. That memory strengthened his resolve, making his gaze firm as he repeated his childhood promise. He had to succeed, no matter what. He gazes down at the small, brown-haired boy clutching a vibrant flower, a memory surfacing, as the child murmurs about the flower. A soft "H-O" escapes him as the child drifts into slumber against his shoulder, a peaceful zzzz, filling the quiet. The gentle "chara" of rustling leaves fills the quiet air around them. He realizes, with a pang of recognition, that the child's innocent features, devoid of the harshness he now carries, are strikingly similar to his own. Musing, now that I look closely, if his old face wasn't so threatening, his current face would look just like his old face. Later, the adult Ian rests, lost in the depths of his own thoughts, the weight of the past heavy upon him. He recalls a pivotal moment, contemplating the fate that would have befallen the boy had he not intervened in Rold Village, thinking, if I didn't come to Rold Village. Without his presence, the child's father would have perished, leaving the boy to be enslaved by raiders, a grim fate he prevented. His father would have died, and he would have gotten captured by the raiders and turned into a slave. The weight of his influence settles upon him. He had, in essence, shaped the very trajectory of this young life, acknowledging the child's life has almost literally been made by him. A new question arises, a silent query about the mysterious benefactor who provided Landers's flower, as he ponders. Who was the person who gave him Landers's flower? His eyes flare with a cold, electric blue light as a chilling thought crosses his mind. Should I dispose of him? The intense blue glow reflects the gravity of his internal debate, a silent struggle within his soul. But the glow fades, replaced by a pragmatic caution, as he decides against any rash action, concluding, it could be dangerous to act too hastily. Ian Page, the 8th class mage, reflects deeply, understanding that to become the greatest magician, he had made a significant mistake. He considers the consequences of his past choices, even if the life he was now seeing was different from his own past. A hand is shown, highlighting the gravity of his thoughts, as he ponders, what happens next? The view changes to a younger Ian, who appears confused among the trees, his face showing a blend of surprise and youth. He turns to an armored man, asking with a young voice, what is happening? The armored man looks at the boy, thinking to himself, who is this child? A memory shows young Ian sleeping, and the armored man remembers thinking, he believed the boy was reckless, so he made him sleep. Back in the present, the armored man tells the awake young Ian to go back to the village, since he was now present. As the armored man gets ready to leave, he stops and asks the boy if he is coming with them. Young Ian, with a determined look, starts to explain his decision, saying he has. His words echo as the view opens to a wide, green field, showing he believes there is a particular place he must go. Under the cover of night, a small village house stands, its window emitting a soft glow, suggesting the quiet lives within. As the darkness outside deepens, inside, a concerned voice breaks the silence, asking, Douglas, are you all right? The injured man, lying in bed, responds with a weary sigh. Aaron, sitting beside him, recounts the recent ordeal. He told me. explaining how a powerful magician had reprimanded them for their magical attempts, adding, "Some magician came to our village and chewed us out. And I also tried to do something magical, but you were magical." Douglas, however, seems lost in his own thoughts, murmuring, "I just." His mind fixated on a different concern, the lingering threat of raiders and his personal quest. Try to find a flower. There could still have been raiders near the village. Frustrated by his friend's distraction, Aaron exclaims, "Then what do I do?" He reminds Douglas of the magician's warning. That magician said you'll stay in harm's way. To which Douglas simply replies, "I'm fine." Yet, Douglas's mind remains stubbornly focused on his elusive goal. If I just find Lander's flower. You couldn't find it for a year. Douglas, still preoccupied, questions whether Lander's flower truly exists. His thoughts hang in the air, as if the universe itself confirms its existence. Suddenly, a loud noise startles both Douglas and Aaron, causing them to react with surprise. Aaron, always cautious, approaches the wooden door, asking who is there. A voice from outside answers, its owner still unknown. The cloaked figure outside the door speaks calmly, mentioning Douglas's search for Lander's flower. A moment of silence passes, then the door slowly opens. Aaron opens the door, and the hooded visitor stands there. Turning back inside, Aaron looks at Douglas, a question in his gaze. Douglas's eyes widen in surprise, recognizing the cloaked figure as the magician who had scolded him previously. Aaron, also surprised by the visitor, can only ask what is happening. Following the unexpected interruption, Douglas and Aaron resumed their research, with Douglas holding a glowing plant and identifying it as Lander's flower. Aaron's golden eyes showed his surprise, and he asked Douglas how he had obtained the flower. Lander's flower, with its bright purple petals and soft glow, appeared both beautiful and powerful. Douglas, holding the flower, offered it to Aaron, but first asked him a question. He asked Aaron for more information, wondering how he knew about an herb whose effects were not widely understood. Aaron's face showed he was thinking, as he prepared to answer. Douglas, guessing the answer, suggested that Aaron had learned about it from a journal. Aaron confirmed this, saying he had seen the information in a journal. Douglas then showed his own connection to such a book, presenting an old herb journal given to him by his teacher. He pointed to a certain page, asking Aaron to look at the detailed description. The journal described Lander's flower as having 12 petals, with green stems and roots. It also noted that the flower absorbs mana as soon as it is picked, a trait unique to the northern continent. Douglas, holding the ancient journal, explains that its contents are not merely information, but a family business, a legacy passed down through generations. He emphasizes that such a valuable family treasure cannot be lent out, its knowledge too significant to be shared lightly. He then reveals a crucial detail. For a magician, especially one with a mana brain, Lander's flower, with its ability to neutralize mana, is effectively a fatal poison. Douglas acknowledges the weight of his words, understanding the implications for Ian. He clarifies that his family's alchemists would never create an elixir with the intent to cause harm. He reiterates the flower's unique mana-neutralizing effect, a property that makes it both fascinating and dangerous. Ian listens intently, processing the information with a thoughtful expression. Douglas offers the delicate, 12-petaled flower, thanking him for his questions. As it changes hands, the flower begins to emit a soft, ethereal blue glow, tiny particles of light dancing around it. Ian now holds the glowing Lander's flower, its radiant energy illuminating his face, a symbol of its potent and unique properties. The Lander's flower emits a soft, crackling sound as it glows in his hand. Douglas Heyman explains his process, stating that he only freezes the flower's shape, not changing its properties. Ian looks at Douglas with suspicion, asking if he had been tricked. Douglas calmly reassures him, explaining he only wanted him to understand the flower, then invites him, asking him to come along. Ian's face shows deep thought, as he considers the offer, his expression unreadable. Douglas continues to explain, promising to carefully tell him about mana poisoning, so he can be free from it. He also promises to let Ian keep the Lander's flower and provide information, especially about Emperor Ragnar and the Heyman family. Douglas then asks Ian to come to the Heyman mansion, mentioning that even the capital's magicians are trying to get this information. A memory surfaces, a plea for elixirs to help with a mana deficiency, shown as a glowing red potion bottle. A younger Ian had once pleaded to study and make a cure for his ill mother. But even then, Douglas had refused, stating he was not an alchemic magician and could not help. He had warned of a potential conflict between the Empire and the House of Heyman, but offered a solution, to find a cure and clear his name. In a flashback, a young Ian stands before Douglas Heyman, asking him to make a proper decision, at least for the sake of another. Douglas, however, maintains his stance, stating that the person Ian refers to is not his child, and asking for clarification on their identity, then requesting some time to think about the matter. Unyielding, the young boy grants him the request, telling Douglas he can take as much time as he needs. Douglas then places a hand on Ian's shoulder, speaking of his desire for no one to lose their father or become an orphan. A moment of quiet contemplation, as the young boy processes Douglas's words. Douglas ruffles Ian's hair, a kind gesture preceding his next question, wondering if his involvement would lead him into trouble with Ragnar. Ian Page begins to walk away from the village. the young magician embarking on his next journey. Roi, an armored knight, informs him that they are prepared to return to the Lord's mansion. Ian pauses, a thoughtful expression on his face. Before a soft sound escapes him, and Roi encourages them to begin their journey, saying, "Let's start heading." Though he had not yet made a clear decision, Ian continues to move forward, casting a look behind him. A sudden "H-U-H" from Roi breaks the silence, followed by a surprised H from Ian. As they walk, Roi asks, "Yes, will you do me a favor?" To which Ian replies, "I was to go with him?" Roi then reminds him, "Please fulfill your promise." Ian extends his hand, confirming his agreement with a simple "of course." He pauses, a quiet sound escaping him as he considers the request. A young child, held by Roi, looks up with hopeful eyes, asking, "Can you really cure my father?" The child's hope weighs on him, and his expression becomes serious. With a determined nod, he states, "Yes, I promise." Both Roi and the child look up, their faces showing surprise and hope, repeating the word, "Really? Really?" Roi then turns to the child, a touch of amusement in his voice, saying, "They don't treat him like a captain. He's so cute, Sir Captain." A brief annoyance crosses Ian's face as he remembers a stern voice from his past, ordering, "Get out of my sight." He ponders, confused, if the Emperor was ever like this when he was young. Time passes, marked by the sound of hooves on the ground, as the journey continues. Suddenly, a voice interrupts, startling both Ian and Douglas, who exclaim, "Whoa, whoa." A fully armored guard approaches Douglas, delivering an urgent message. "Magician, we have to go to the castle quickly." Douglas, surprised, asks if something happened, to which the guard replies he's been told to bring them right away, prompting Douglas to wonder, the Emperor? Already summoned to the castle, Ian Page found himself contemplating the unexpected turn of events, a slight surprise crossing his features. As a knight approached with a magnificent steed, he offered to prepare the horse, asking if Ian wished to ride it. With a gentle touch, Ian assured the knight that the animal would become his friend, a testament to his unique connection with all living things. His hand caressed the horse's muzzle, a silent bond forming instantly. The majestic creature responded with a soft exhale, its eye reflecting a newfound tranquility. Mounted upon his new companion, Ian received the knight's instruction to proceed to the castle, the knight marveling at how quickly he tamed the powerful animal. With a final glance back at the bowing knight, Ian set off, the horse moving with a graceful stride. Sir Arnold, the knight, then turned to Douglas Heyman, instructing him to follow Ian to the castle. Ian, already ahead, declared his intention to lead the way, his figure receding into the distance. Behind him, the grand royal carriage, flanked by knights, began its journey, the rhythmic clatter of its wheels echoing through the air. The ornate door of the carriage hinted at the powerful figure within, a silent anticipation building. Inside, Emperor Ragnar gazed out with a stern expression, his golden eyes fixed on the approaching path, awaiting the arrival of his summoned guests. An older noble, with a serious expression, speaks to the Emperor, asking, You dare to be so rude?" He then adds, "I had something important to tell you, young Ian." He reminds the Emperor that many people once supported the Fifth Prince. He states that the Emperor knows this, and that his father is good at keeping that information important. The advisor continues, stating that even the owner of the Ivory Tower is now following the Fifth Prince. He adds that the Fifth Prince thought he was the Emperor's own child. He will surely be disappointed and try to put great pressure on his name. The noble maintains his serious expression, his words conveying the importance of the matter. He then says the name, Ian Page. He instructs, "Do anything to make him yours." His voice carries a sense of urgency, as he warns, before the Ivory Tower gets to him. The advisor's words continue, a clear instruction. "I'm telling you to make him yours and build a base." Emperor Ragnar sighs in frustration, his golden eyes showing his displeasure at the situation. The advisor, continuing his speech, questions Ian's usefulness. Even if he is a magician, what help would that child be, he asks. He then states, "The Ivory Tower is filled with magicians, and any 9 of them are on my side." Ragnar's golden eye shows his anger, as he thinks, how dare he leave me, the heir, and pick the Fifth Prince. His ambition is clear, a dark promise forming in his mind. The day I rise to the throne, I'll get rid of all those. He considers the end of a recent discussion. A subordinate respectfully addresses him. Second Police Captain Oliver Ragwood suggests calling the Moglians. The Emperor remains deep in thought. Oliver explains the necessary preparations for the Moglians' arrival, noting it will take 2 days and asking for understanding. His expression remains unreadable. Confirming the situation, Oliver then asks about their travel time. The Emperor cuts him off, commanding him to send a message. He declares his intention to show Ian Page the Moglians' slowness, connecting it to their 2-day arrival, as part of his plan. Oliver listens intently. A look of grim determination settles on his face. The captain affirms his understanding. The Imperial Palace, a grand and imposing structure, stood under a clear sky, its architecture reflecting the Empire's strength. Inside, Roi, a noble with a trimmed beard, sighed in frustration, the quiet halls echoing his annoyed sound. He covered his face with a hand, feeling the pressure of the situation as he said. He wondered why there had been no message from the guests, even though he had thought they wouldn't come at all. But then, unexpectedly, Rua's frustration grew as he asked if there was still no news from the families. An attendant nearby suggested they just forget the problem and go outside for a bit, offering a brief break from the growing stress. Just then, Margaret, a noblewoman with blonde hair, entered the room with an urgent announcement, her voice clearly stating that the crown prince had finally arrived. Outside, a grand horse-drawn carriage, decorated with imperial symbols, slowly approached, its arrival marked by the sound of hooves and wheels. The decorated wheel of the carriage turned steadily, bringing the royal guest closer to the palace. The crown prince's carriage door opens, and the young royal steps out, his arrival marking a significant moment. Roi, waiting patiently, begins to speak to the prince, but is interrupted. A voice shouts halt, and the sound of horse hooves rapidly approaching can be heard. Ian Page dismounts, apologizing for being late, looking somewhat embarrassed. The crown prince smiles, saying that his arrival is what counts. In the background, people murmur, recognizing him as the magician from the Page family, which surprises some. Roi, now composed, tells Ian that he must be at the imperial palace because the emperor ordered it. With a sudden movement, the crown prince steps closer, looking directly at the young magician. He asks directly, "Are you Ian Page?" The crown prince's uniform, richly detailed, shows his high rank. Ian, still looking down, grumbles that he was already in a bad mood, showing his annoyance. Elsewhere, a group of cloaked figures watches the events, unseen by others. Among them, a woman named Cecilia observes with a focused gaze. Ian Page lets out a strained sound, his eyes glowing with blue energy, a trace of blood on his lips as power emanates from him. The grand interior of the imperial palace is displayed, showcasing its impressive architecture. Within, the crown prince, standing beside his aide, calmly states, "You must not overthink." Internally, he expresses his disappointment with the banquet, finding the wine unappealing and the social obligations tiresome after his long travels. He deems the entire event unsatisfactory, including his impression of the mage who recently arrived. His companion remains silent, as the crown prince wishes to retire early and rest. Elsewhere, Cecilia watches the scene unfold, noting that the Coldwood Empire also seems to be taking an interest in the young man. It was not long ago that the Coldwood Empire issued two specific commands. One, to personally observe Ian Page to confirm the rumors about him. And two, to capture the emperor and his mother, returning them to the empire. She considers the extent of his power, questioning what kind of person could have such a strong connection. At night, a large building stands quietly, its windows reflecting the stars. He stands alone in the courtyard, the subject of her attention. With a slight smile, she thinks about testing his reported skills, beginning with a small challenge. The air becomes tense as her hand begins to glow with magic, indicating an attack is about to happen. A magic missile, a stream of magical energy, flies through the night towards him. He reacts quickly, his eyes showing sudden surprise. Before the missile hits, a glowing blue shield appears around him, easily blocking the attack. She gasps, surprised by the shield, and asks who he is. His hand now glows with a soft blue light, showing his natural magical ability. With a slight smile, she reveals herself as a sensei from the magic tower, suggesting a connection he might not expect. He replies with a touch of irritation, asking, "You mean people like me?" A slight smile touches her lips as she observes the young mage. She continues, her tone light, suggesting a senior's jest with a junior, but her words carry a subtle challenge. Suddenly, a sharp realization dawns on her face, her eyes widening in surprise. A choked gasp escapes her as the weight of his words begins to sink in. The young mage, his composure unwavering, demands to know how she could possibly utter that name. Cecilia, regaining her composure, simply states that she knows him well. But Ian's eyes glow with an intense blue light, his voice cutting through the air as he reveals a terrifying truth. He remembers her from a past life, a life where he eradicated the cold walkers she was embedded with. He advances, his words dripping with contempt, exposing her true identity as the stable master of the Moulton family, a figure he clearly despises. Rain begins to fall, mirroring the sudden chill in the air as Cecilia, the royal magician and top mage from the Imperial Squad 3, stands stunned by his revelation. Ian presses his advantage, accusing her of being the palace's dog and demanding if she remembers the crime she committed in his past life. A pensive expression crosses her face as she admits, perhaps truthfully, that she doesn't recall. His glowing blue eye narrows, the intensity of his gaze suggesting a deeper, unresolved history between them. He extends a hand, gathering a swirling orange light in his palm, demanding the names of those involved. Cecilia, however, dismisses his plea, and a massive fiery explosion erupts between them, as if to erase the memory of those names. The inferno expands, filling the space with intense heat and light. She stands calmly amidst the raging flames, her back to him, seemingly unaffected by her own destructive power. The fire then rapidly dissipates, leaving only faint wisps of smoke behind. Ian watches the last embers fade, a hint of surprise on his face. He then holds up a glowing orb, revealing his true intent as he states that he already knew she was a cold walker. Cecilia turns to face him, her expression unreadable, and questions why he chose this moment to reveal himself. Ian raises his arm, explaining that he needed her to come find him at the guild hall, leaving her to wonder if he had deliberately avoided her attack magic and what he truly was. A look of shock spreads across her face as his words sink in. Suddenly, sharp, crystalline ice shards erupt from the ground, lunging towards her. The ice magic from the previous attack culminates in a massive, crystalline formation, its jagged peaks reaching high into the sky. Amidst the chilling aftermath, he stands, observing the frozen landscape he has created, a calm expression on his face. A moment of silence follows, as the residual magic settles. Ian Page extends his hand, a subtle surge of mana gathering at his fingertips. And sharp ice spears materialize from the air, crackling with cold energy. He declares, "Ice spear." Several ice spears now float before him, ready to be launched. A female mage, seeing the sudden attack, steps back in surprise, her eyes wide as she lets out a cry. Before she can fully react, Ian Page quickly casts a shimmering blue shield around himself, announcing, "Mana barrier." The female mage's attack hits the new barrier, causing blue energy to ripple across it, but it holds firm. A hint of worry appears on her face, her confidence fading as she realizes the barrier's strength. Meanwhile, Ian Page starts to gather more power, a fiery red glow surrounding him, and the ground beneath him shines with strong magic. His gaze becomes sharp, his golden eyes burning with strong resolve, as he puts all his effort into the coming attack. Then, with a loud cry, he releases the stored energy, a powerful blast of pure, destructive force bursting from him. The fiery blast spreads out with great speed, a swirling mix of red and orange consuming everything in its way. Caught in the aftermath of the fiery explosion, the female mage finds herself unable to move, her mana barrier holding her in place against the powerful attack. With a sudden crack, her defenses break, causing her to recoil as the blue energy of her shield bursts. The impact tears through her, leaving deep, bleeding cuts across her arm. More blood flows from the wounds, showing the destructive power she just faced. Meanwhile, Ian Page stands amidst the fading blue magical energy, a small amount of blood at the corner of his mouth, looking down. Without hesitation, he moves forward, a blur through the fiery explosion he created. The female mage, hurt and bleeding, turns away, her back and shoulder now red from the attack. Her eye widens in terror and understanding, as the full horror of her situation becomes clear. Against all odds, she remains conscious, a desperate whisper escaping her. I'm alive." Collapsing onto the ground, she lies down, her body in pain, but her mind is active. A grim thought comes to her. That young man must be out of mana after such a powerful spell, but the danger isn't over, as others will surely arrive. As the magical barrier around her faded, the injured mage, bleeding from her mouth, uttered a faint plea. "Huss. Ikiro." Despite her severe injuries, she found a surge of determination, thinking, "I'm not prepared to die yet. I have to protect my family, and I have to live." Elsewhere, Ian Page spoke with a cold demeanor, stating, "I plan to make a deal with my life, by selling you." The mage, still injured, questioned his plan. "Do you think that'll work?" He responded confidently, "Course." He then added, cold-hearted, "Those are words that even you guys don't know yet." A voice abruptly questioned, "What are you saying?" The injured mage could only murmur faintly. Ian Page turned to face Aaron and Oliver, who had just arrived, with Aaron asking, "What just happened?" "Cecilia." Oliver, also confused, asked, "What happened?" Aaron, observing the mage's injuries, questioned Ian Page, "What happened to you?" "These wounds are." Ian Page confessed, "I did it." He then added, "I'm sorry for yourself." A moment of hesitation, and he clarified, "I don't consciously." A woman, her expression a mix of shock and disbelief, clutches her chest, recalling a conversation where someone was speaking, wearing something large. Meanwhile, Ian Page recounts the incident, explaining how the woman had suddenly tried to kill him without warning. Emperor Ragnar, his gaze sharp, questions if that's why Ian left her in such a state, to which Ian calmly replies that he needed to survive. The Emperor demands proof, as it appeared as if his men were investigating something within the grand building. Ian, looking down in thought, reveals a crucial detail, a distinct mark on their bodies. The injured woman, her white dress stained with blood, looks utterly distraught, while Roi stands behind her, a look of concern on his face. Aaron and Oliver confront Ian, with Aaron calling out to him and Oliver questioning if he isn't being too harsh, reminding him about the mage's street. A hand, clad in a white glove, slowly draws a sword from its scabbard with a soft sound. The injured woman gasps in distress as Roi firmly pulls her by the arm, moving her along. Emperor Ragnar, now holding his drawn sword, declares sternly that they refuse to be processed. Aaron, his expression resolute, emphasizes that regardless of whether it's the mage of the tower or not, they have a duty to find the truth. Ian, looking down, concedes, but insists that they must at least let him heal her first, promising they can do whatever they want after the search is over. The investigators report that they found nothing suspicious, causing Cecilia to question her own perception of events. Her thoughts turn inward, as she ponders what mistakes she made and how she could have protected herself better. The investigators' repeated statement of finding nothing suspicious only reinforces her confusion and the possibility that her attacker's story is true. She is overwhelmed by questions, asking herself what she did wrong, how she could have protected the other person, and emphasizing the urgent need for healing, recalling the intensity of the situation. The burden of the situation weighs heavily on her, making her question if her understanding of events was entirely false. Then, Ian Page approaches, his expression serious, and he asks a direct question, now. Without hesitation, he quickly moves towards Cecilia, his hand extending with a swift motion, leaving a subtle magical trail. He takes hold of her with a gentle but firm grip, apologizing softly as he prepares to perform an action. Please, excuse me. Cecilia, surprised by his abrupt action, can only ask, as a bright blue light glows from his hand and spreads over her neck. The sudden magical display surprises Oliver Ragwood, who watches with wide eyes at the unexpected event. As the blue light grows stronger, a detailed magical symbol appears on Cecilia's neck, uncovering the truth. A mana seal? Cecilia is left in shock by the discovery, looking at Ian Page and asking, what did you do? As the revelation of the mana seal on Cecilia's neck settled, Ian Page, still processing the discovery, remarked that he had been wondering what the others were doing, suggesting he was looking for something specific. The implications of such a mark began to surface, indicating that individuals known as Cold Walkers are sent to a special training school if they bear one, a secret known only to their managers. This type of mana seal is so potent and rare that even the Emperor himself once spent a year forming one, underscoring its immense power and significance. Turning to the injured mage, Oliver Ragwood inquired if anyone present understood the meaning of this mysterious mark, his gaze fixed on Cecilia. He then directed his question to Ian, who, with a thoughtful expression, confessed that it was his first time encountering such a mark. Oliver hummed in contemplation, acknowledging that despite the lack of immediate understanding, the mark itself was undeniable. He declared that it still served as crucial evidence, then swiftly commanded his subordinates to heal the injured mage. Cecilia, her face etched with confusion and distress, remained silent, her mind likely reeling from the implications of the mana seal. Oliver then issued another stern order, instructing his men to prepare a mana prison for her. Turning his attention back to the young mage, Oliver addressed Ian directly, his tone serious. He explained that if everything they had uncovered proved to be the truth, significant consequences would follow. With a final, weighty statement, Oliver assured Ian that the Emperor himself would reward him for his efforts. A younger Ian Page, dressed in a military uniform, stands with a confident demeanor, his recent victory against a third-class magician of the Ivory Tower having become a subject of conversation. Emperor Ragnar, in his own regal uniform, laughs heartily, confessing that he had not anticipated such an impressive achievement from the young man. With a keen gaze, the Emperor then inquires, seeking Ian's opinion on the renowned Ivory Tower. A knowing smile forms on Ragnar's lips as he confirms, the Duchess's earlier words about the young talent were true. A hand gently settles on Ian's shoulder, a gesture conveying both pride and anticipation. Ian, slightly embarrassed by the praise, responds with a quiet, his gaze lowered. Then, with an abrupt change in tone, the Emperor instructs a nearby captain to escort the young magician to his presence. Ian's expression changes to surprise, his eyes widening slightly at the sudden request. As he approaches the Emperor, Ian respectfully inquires if he has been summoned by His Highness. With a deep bow, Ian receives the Emperor's confirmation, acknowledging the summons. Emperor Ragnar acknowledges the young magician's recent triumph, stating that his account of defeating and capturing the third-class magician of the Ivory Tower was very significant. Ian, maintaining his composure, simply replies that he is flattered. The Emperor, with a regal gesture. Then, the Emperor makes an offer, asking if there is anything Ian wants, while Ian inwardly suspects a deeper motive, sensing an attempt to read his inner desires. Ian voices his surprise, repeating the Emperor's question about his desires. A moment of internal deliberation passes, as he decides to simply let the Emperor state his intentions. With a resolute expression, he declares his intention to tell the Emperor what he wants. His gaze drifts towards a distant window, a question forming in his mind as he wonders if the Emperor refers to the site of the old Ivory Tower. The Emperor, noticing his focus, inquires why he asks about that particular location, adding that there isn't much left there. Ian sighs, admitting he's only heard about it through stories, yet he's always been curious to visit the place at least once. He muses that he must have been a little kid when he first heard of it, while the Emperor states there's no time for such musings. Undeterred, Ian expresses his belief that he'll be able to visit it sometime in the future. His thoughts lingered on the old Ivory Tower, a location said to conceal a powerful item deep within its structure. He remembered the dragon language scroll, which was vital to the magic of death. That book held the legend of the dragon, and in his previous life, he had been able to read it before his death. Despite that, he had only understood a small part of it, and he wondered how much he could understand in this new life. His thoughts continued to dwell on these deep subjects, while the world outside progressed. Under the night sky, the journey went on. The sounds of the night, like soft footsteps, filled the air as they traveled. A carriage, guarded by a knight, moved steadily, its wheels rattling softly. Inside the carriage, his mother, Lady Page, looked out the window, watching the scenery pass by. She turned from the window and spoke softly, asking a question. He looked at her, a small smile on his face, and agreed with her. He then promised her that he would be her guide once they arrived at the capital, calling her Lady Page. Inside the carriage, a man seated beside him offers a thought. His mother smiles softly, lost in her own thoughts. Ian, however, finds the experience somewhat uncomfortable, a feeling he can't quite shake. He watches the passing scenery, the carriage wheels creaking rhythmically. Their journey ends, and a servant announces their arrival to Ian, who now wears a formal uniform. The capital city's grand architecture stands illuminated under the night sky. In daylight, the city's impressive structures are fully visible. He is informed that their stay will last for 2 days. Following the emperor's orders, he prepares to act. He states that they are the first to be granted access to this specific area during their stay. He addresses the attendants, preparing to guide them. He confirms his intention to personally guide them to their lodging. The capital city comes into view, its large buildings standing out against the surrounding area. As the carriage enters, 2 villagers talk about the new arrivals, wondering if they are nobles. Inside, Ian, his mother, and Aaron watch the busy streets, and one villager says, "To think that His Highness would post guards in our village." At the same time, a serious captain, with 2 guards beside him, watches the group. He sounds a bit amused as he says, "Ha! Well, it's nothing." His laughter has a slight edge to it. Ha! When Ian gets out, he thinks, I guess he treats the citizens in a humane way. A memory comes to him, showing a past time when he wore a military uniform and thought about the captain's strong loyalty. In my past life, the captain, even back then, always had a dark and unfriendly look on his face. He always had a dark and hostile expression on his face. His stare, sharp and firm, showed a lot about who he was. Ian remembers the captain's strong devotion, a loyalty that was more than just his job, since Ragnar was always by my side. He keeps thinking, recognizing the captain's loyalty even with his own past mistakes, so I guess he makes those kinds of expressions. To think one who did not fit loyalty or ability. I can tell the current Emperor Ragnar is a good prince. Returning to the present, Ian speaks to the captain directly, his voice clear. Captain. The captain, now walking behind Ian, asks a question, his tone suggesting their past together. When will I be allowed to use the old ivory sword? Ian asks Douglas why he is inquiring about his plans, then confesses that he also wished to visit the same areas. Douglas, looking down, explains that he needs to visit the nearby areas at dawn. Ian then proposes they visit the neighboring areas together tomorrow, a suggestion that surprises Douglas, who then agrees. Overjoyed by the proposal, Douglas expresses his sincere thanks with a wide smile. Ian observes Douglas, a subtle expression of contentment on his face. Still deep in conversation, she asks if her husband was also a magician, only to clarify that Aaron was just a normal person. He had vanished before Ian was even born, simply disappearing after a regular day at work. A lone figure, cloaked and mysterious, walked away into the dense forest, leaving behind a void that would never truly be filled. It was 5 long years later when only his belongings returned, a stark reminder of the tragedy that had befallen them. Bringing herself back to the present, she muses that recently, Ian has been, her voice trailing off as a heavy silence fills the room. Shaking her head, she quickly dismisses the thought, deciding not to dwell on the painful memories. As the image of the cloaked figure lingers, Ian himself looks down, a quiet, "It's nothing," escaping his lips, perhaps to himself, perhaps to an unseen presence. Meanwhile, under a vast, star-dusted sky, a quaint building with a rounded roof stands, a soft sound echoing in the night. An endless journey that stretched through time, culminating in a new beginning after a very long time. This was the start of a new journey, a path illuminated by shimmering particles that danced around the lone traveler. He wondered if his return was simply because he had entered the world tower back then. His gaze fell upon the colossal structure, its ancient grandeur stretching towards the heavens. He felt an undeniable pull, as if guided by an unseen hand towards its towering entrance. Stepping inside, the vastness of the interior echoed with silence, a testament to centuries of solitude. He began his ascent, his footsteps echoing softly on the grand staircase. A familiar sight greeted him, the very essence of the place unchanged, as if time itself had stood still within its walls. 300 years ago, this very tower was built by a legendary figure, a man who became the Dragon King's descendant and master of his kin. Centuries ago, the Dragon's army, led by the Dragon King's descendant, waged a war with the sole objective of destroying the empire. But the Emperor and the Dragon King's descendant, 2 powerful figures, fought in a great battle, a conflict that would be remembered for all time. In the end, the Emperor won, defeating the Dragon King's descendant and bringing peace to the land, though it was a peace that came at a great cost. The people, in their admiration, began to call this large structure the World Tower, a monument to the Emperor's victory and a symbol of their hope. It was here that the capital, Green Reverdium, was founded, a city built around the tower's great power, but over time, even great monuments can become ruins. Now, centuries later, the once proud capital lay abandoned by its people, a desolate reminder of its past glory. Ian Page, having traveled far to reach this spot, looked at the crumbling buildings, wondering if this was the exact place he was looking for. He looked down, searching the ground for any sign, Any hint of the power he knew was hidden in these old stones, his resolve firm. He grunted with effort as he knelt, pressing his hand against the cold, hard surface, feeling a surge of energy begin to flow. With a sharp chack sound, a hidden mechanism engaged beneath his touch, and the air around him began to crackle. Then, with a loud schwa sound, a bright, glowing light burst from his outstretched hand, and shining particles appeared. The bright energy quickly expanded, with rings of magic spreading outwards, filling the empty space with a stunning display of power. He continues his journey through the ancient, crumbling halls of the World Tower. A monstrous, gray-skinned face with glowing red eyes suddenly emerges from the darkness, its predatory gaze locking onto him. The massive, winged form of a gargoyle descends from the high ceiling with predatory intent, its presence filling the cavernous space. He is taken aback, a thought forming in his mind. I was really surprised when I... The creature lunges, a blur of claws and teeth, attacking with fierce aggression. Its gaping maw snaps with guttural cries, a terrifying sound in the silence. Razor-sharp talons swipe through the air, barely missing him, a close call in the sudden attack. His surprise deepens as he processes the impossible reality. Since I never once thought that a gargoyle that had gone extinct 300 years ago was hiding here. The gargoyle's attack, having missed its intended target, slams into a massive stone pillar, causing the ancient structure to crack under the impact. The beast lets out a furious shriek, its frustration evident after the missed strike. Ian observes the damage to the pillar, his expression a mix of calculation and grim determination, preparing for the next move. Ian Page immediately conjures a sphere of blue water magic in his hand, preparing to launch an aqua jet. The magical energy swirls and expands, transforming into a concentrated jet of water. With a decisive motion, he launches the aqua jet, directing it towards the gargoyle. The spell strikes the gargoyle's chest, causing it to recoil from the impact. A large explosion of blue energy follows, enveloping the gargoyle in a burst of water and light. When the dust settles, the gargoyle is seen pushed back, its body showing signs of damage from the attack. Ian observes the gargoyle's condition, thinking that he can easily defeat it if its strength is limited to this. However, the gargoyle is not yet defeated, and it prepares to exert more effort despite its weakened condition. Suddenly, the gargoyle lunges forward, rapidly closing the distance to Ian. A deep growl escapes its throat, and its eyes glow with a menacing purple light. Its large claw swipes through the air, targeting Ian. The relentless attack persists, with the gargoyle continuing its claw strikes. He remained resolute, his cloak moving gently in the air as he prepared for his next action. He then casts an ice spear, a sharp projectile of ice that flies rapidly towards his opponent. The ice projectile struck the gargoyle's chest, breaking apart and causing the creature to stumble backward. A deep roar of anger came from the creature, its red eyes glowing as it recovered from the hit. Ian, however, remained calm, his eyes fixed on the gargoyle as he readied another powerful spell. His golden eyes began to glow, and a strong electrical energy gathered around him as he concentrated. Then, with a loud sound, bright bolts of lightning shot out from him, cutting through the air. He was surrounded by a bright golden glow, acting as a channel for powerful electrical energy as the spell reached its strongest point. The lightning hit with great force, a bright flash covering the gargoyle and leaving only a faint sound of its power. With the large creature finally defeated, Ian looked down, feeling a quiet sense of accomplishment, knowing the way forward was now open. His expression became more focused, and with new resolve, he stated, "It's about time it's open." He then walked into a large, ruined room, looking around the old, empty area, prepared for what might come next. A loud crash reverberates, and a square opening appears in the ceiling, allowing rain to fall into the space beneath. He looks up at the falling rain, realizing the situation is similar to how he first arrived in this world. Without delay, he casts a featherfall spell, causing glowing particles to gather around his hand as he prepares to descend. He then leaps, descending through the opening with a soft, blue aura surrounding him. His foot lands with a soft sound, touching the shallow water covering the floor of the chamber. He finds himself in a large, ruined hall, with old stones and a single table among the debris, which seems to emit a faint, crackling sound. A slight smile forms on his face, and his eyes show a hint of anticipation as he looks around the mysterious area. The chamber contains a secret, a powerful item he found much earlier than he thought he would, the dragon's language scroll, which glows with old magic. Its cover, with its detailed design and old leather binding, suggests the deep knowledge held within its pages. Approaching the table, he wonders who could have hidden such an important item here. His expression becomes thoughtful, as a new idea comes to him. Perhaps this item belonged to the very first magician. Holding the old dragon's language scroll, he feels its great power and wishes he could read it, knowing it would make him very rich. He gazes at the ancient text, a hint of confusion appearing on his face as the words remain unreadable. It's empty, he wonders, the scroll feeling strangely light in his grasp. A soft thrumming sound begins to come from the artifact, a subtle magical pulse suggesting a hidden secret within its pages. His brow furrows in thought, a sudden idea coming to him as he considers the scroll's true nature. Perhaps, The air around the scroll crackles with magical energy, a complex magical diagram lighting up with an intense blue glow, as if answering his unspoken question. Is it because it's already been used? Another soft thrumming sound comes from the ancient artifact, drawing his attention back to its mysterious surface. A wave of memories washes over him, recalling a past life where the dragon's language was a familiar tool. If only I could read dragon's language, he thinks. I used it in my past life a lot more time. He thinks about the implications, his mind quickly trying to connect his past knowledge with the scroll's current state. A sudden, sharp pain grips his throat, a physical sign of his inability to speak the ancient words. I can't make a sound, he says, holding his neck. The truth becomes clear in his mind. The dragon's language isn't a language only through the voice. It's a magical language that uses mana as its roots. A deep understanding settles over him, leading to the only logical conclusion. Then, there's only one explanation. He holds the scroll tighter, the revelation hitting him with full force. The only way the dragon's language can be readable, and the only way the mana can be used is through the heart. A wry smile touches his lips, a bitter memory coming to mind. I had thought I could constantly turn back time. He reflects on the dragon's language, acknowledging that a misunderstanding of its nature could have led to severe consequences. A moment of clarity brings him to consider his current existence, his second life, and the path he now walks. This newfound understanding, however, brings with it a significant and growing sense of responsibility. The journey was nearing its end, as a voice announced their imminent arrival at the capital of Gregorian, addressing Ian. The large city, a beacon of civilization, came into view, its many buildings stretching towards the horizon. Carriages and people moved through its streets, a vibrant scene of life unfolding beneath the clear sky. Inside a carriage, Ian looked out, a quiet determination in his eyes as he acknowledged he had finally arrived in the capital. Later, in a private setting, Ian told Aaron that he should keep his guard up, sensing the underlying currents of this new environment. Meanwhile, Cecilia, lost in thought, considered the implications if she were to re-establish contact with another continent. Her expression darkened as she thought about a dire prophecy. The goblin threat would inevitably endanger all of mankind. With a resolute gaze, Cecilia concluded that things were about to become very interesting in many ways. Back with Ian, a thoughtful expression crossed his face, as if contemplating the weight of his new surroundings. He rode on horseback, approaching a magnificent, domed structure, its grandeur hinting at its importance. However, his path was abruptly blocked by a group of robed figures, one of whom raised a staff and commanded him to halt. Arriving at the grand entrance, he is immediately met with an unexpected challenge, indicating that his presence is not welcome. Standing in his path, a stern-faced tower leader, holding a staff, declares his authority, making it clear that Ian's journey ends here. Unfazed, Ian challenges the man's right to stop him, demanding to know what authority he possesses. The tower leader's response is swift and absolute. He acts on the direct orders of His Majesty, the Emperor himself. He further explains that the Emperor has received a formal request, a plea from the imperial family of the Gregorian Empire. Ian's expression hardens as he hears the name Gregorian, a place he knows to be steeped in ancient magic and powerful mages. The tower leader, sensing his impatience, insists that such matters should be handled with the utmost discretion, as quickly and quietly as possible. He advises Ian to take a rest, suggesting that the tower's defenses are impenetrable, and that any attempt to force his way through would be futile. But Ian's resolve is unshaken, his gaze fixed on the tower leader as he issues a chilling command to hand over the dinner to the tower lord. His voice drops to a dangerous whisper, a clear threat underlying his words, reminding the man that the captain is not yet ready for his meal. He continues his journey, a lone figure approaching a large building, while a voice from inside questions his identity, asking if he is truly the one they have been expecting. The unseen speaker advises caution, stressing that they must observe him carefully, as his arrival is important. Meanwhile, a group of guards stands ready, with one guard expressing confusion, wondering why they are being told to stand down when such a powerful magician is approaching. From a hidden spot, Margaret watches the events unfold, her mind working quickly as she understands the complex political situation. The truth is, the Emperor is not trying to protect him. He is simply using the idea of the divine times to control the situation, making sure no knights stop the arrival of a strong magician. He is holding her captive in the Tower of Times, making her search for a way to shorten his life, knowing that even if she is a spy from Kalamdo, she will not refuse such a desperate request. The only way to escape the underground prison is to do what he asks, a harsh truth that troubles her thoughts. Margaret sighs, her face showing concern, speaking softly about the Emperor's real plans and wishing she didn't have to consider them. Meanwhile, Ian, seemingly unaware of the plots around him, confidently says that there is now one less thing for him to worry about. As he gets closer, Margaret greets him, her voice sounding normal despite her inner conflict. She tells him that His Highness wants to visit a special place, a location that will take them straight to the Imperial Palace. The Grand Imperial Palace stands impressively in the distance, its rich design suggesting the power and secrets that lie inside. He stands before a grand mansion, a place he recalls receiving in a past life when he was 18. His feet move forward, a subtle continuation of his journey. He confirms to his companion that this mansion was indeed a gift from his grandfather. Margaret, standing beside him, inquires about the rest of the story. His thoughts drift, revealing that in his past life, he received this mansion at 18, but in this life, it came 14 years earlier. He then tells Margaret that the mansion has a name, and for now, she can simply call him Sir, before instructing her to accompany him to the palace. He recalls how she used to address him directly as Ian Page when they were in the imperial court. Margaret, seemingly hesitant, asks if she might first take a look around the mansion. Ian readily agrees, a slight surprise on his face. He smiles, granting her request. Margaret expresses her gratitude. The Grand Mansion stands, awaiting their exploration. The Grand Mansion, a symbol of his newfound status, stands before them. As they approach, Margaret, his attendant, exclaims, "Oh my!" He then asks, "How do you like it?" With a confident expression, he declares, "This house is ours from now on." Margaret, surprised, confirms, "This place," to which he affirms, "Yes." She then muses, "But I heard it was already passed down." He, meanwhile, reflects that this grand estate, a suitable home for an 8th-class magician, came into his possession much earlier in this life than he recalled, and he wonders what his mother would think. With a knowing look, he adds, "It's meant to be used by royalty." Margaret, captivated by the mansion's beauty, requests, "May I explore it first?" He grants her wish, knowing that in this life, he has the power to achieve anything he desires, unlike his past self. Margaret, her eyes wide with wonder, simply breathes, "Huh, is it?" She realizes that this time, she will be able to see it all. A close-up reveals his thoughtful expression, as he internally describes the mansion as wide and gorgeous, yet also considers a deeper, unspoken aspect. The interior of the mansion, vast and intricate, poses a new question. But how are we supposed to find this place? Standing before the grand estate, Margaret suddenly exclaims, calling out to her brother, who calmly asks what is wrong, prompting her to state that she will have another request for him soon. Her complaint quickly becomes apparent, as she expresses frustration that their mother does not think about cleaning the house, a statement Ian hears without comment. The view then shifts to the magnificent structure, showcasing the grand mansion that the Emperor had bestowed upon Ian Page. Its sprawling architecture and intricate details hint at its royal origins, reflecting the power and prestige associated with such a gift. This mansion, a true marvel of design, stands as a symbol of imperial grandeur, with its meticulously maintained gardens and gleaming facade. Inside, Ian adjusts the cuff of his ornate jacket, a small action that hints at a slight nervousness. He admits to himself that he feels a little nervous, remembering that in his past life, he never properly greeted the Emperor. His formal attire, a rich blue and gold ensemble, reflects his elevated status, befitting his position. He gazes at a grand portrait, his thoughts drifting to a time when he was already an 8th-class magician, a powerful mage even in his past life. The portrait depicts the Emperor, a figure praised for his profound wisdom and benevolence, his regal presence captured in the painting. Turning to Margaret, Ian expresses a touch of self-admiration, stating that he really likes the portrait of himself. He then gazes out a window, a thoughtful hum escaping his lips, lost in contemplation. Lost in thought, Ian's mind drifts back to the prince's palace, a place of power and intrigue. He ponders the Emperor's current state, a man who was once the prince, the son of a concubine, now ruling with absolute authority. The Emperor's portrait, adorned with vibrant red roses, looms large, a stark reminder of the man who had once been his closest friend, a bond now fractured by time and circumstance. He remembers the Emperor's words, a chilling declaration of his intent to become the strongest, a goal that had driven him to unimaginable lengths. Now, in this new life, Ian wonders, what should he do when he meets him again? His thoughts are interrupted as he walks through the opulent palace halls, his elegant attire rustling softly with each step. Suddenly, a familiar figure approaches, a loyal attendant who has served the royal family for years. The attendant, Roi, bows respectfully, informing him that His Majesty is waiting. A memory begins, with Ian Page kneeling in a large hall, as an unseen voice states, "We are waiting for you." The opulent throne room is bathed in golden light, its intricate details suggesting the immense power it represents. Emperor Ragnar sits upon his majestic throne, his gaze directed towards the kneeling mage, who remains respectfully bowed. Ian's voice, humble and quiet, barely reaches the Emperor. "Someone as lowly as me dares to meet you, my majesty." The Emperor's face shows no clear emotion as he instructs, "Raise your head." His words carry the authority of his position, as he speaks to the young mage, the hero of the North, Ian Page. Ian, maintaining his respectful posture, replies, "Thank you, your majesty," then adds with a touch of his characteristic frankness, "No need to be so hard." Now standing, the young mage playfully comments, "You probably never got yourself to stand up." The Emperor, with a faint smirk, replies, "You never learn manners, or you're just so hardy." Ian's thoughts wander, remembering a similar comment. "Even when I first met Ragnar, he said that to me." As they walk side by side, the Emperor's voice becomes more casual, asking, "Did you like the mansion? I gave you one of my royal." As the Emperor spoke of gifting more homes, Aaron wondered what Ian Page was doing in front of the Emperor, while Ian himself could only utter a small sound of surprise. Aaron, ever the careful aide, silently questioned Ian's presence before the Emperor, his face showing a mix of worry and confusion. Meanwhile, the Emperor, known for his directness, asked Ian if he liked the gift he had received. Ian, still thinking about the Emperor's generosity, remembered how happy his mother had been because of the Emperor's gift. He smiled slightly, thinking of his mother's happiness, before the Emperor asked if he was a fan of the mansion. Ian, feeling grateful but also a bit overwhelmed, confessed he couldn't say no to such a big gift, especially from the Emperor. The Emperor's kindness, and maybe his own new duties, seemed to weigh on Ian, making him pause in thought. Not knowing Ian's thoughts, or perhaps choosing to ignore them, the Emperor wondered if he should be even clearer about what he meant. It was well known that Ragnar, just like the Emperor, liked to speak his thoughts clearly and directly, which often surprised others. Ian, however, seemed to understand the Emperor's way of speaking and replied thoughtfully, "No, not yet," showing he was carefully thinking about the Emperor's offer. He then politely explained that the new mansion probably wasn't as grand as the one the Emperor had given him before, and that he wasn't sure he could handle such a big property, but he still thanked the Emperor for the kind offer. He had been told this many times, yet the Emperor's words still affirmed his unique and special nature. The Emperor's gaze sharpened, as if asking if he had forgotten his own importance. From the sidelines, Aaron watched the exchange, a silent observer, his thoughts unreadable. A faint blush crept across his cheeks, a rare display of modesty, as he struggled to respond. Finally, he managed to utter a single, respectful word, acknowledging the Emperor's presence. The Emperor, however, merely scoffed at his humility, dismissing his protests. Aaron, still observing, felt a surge of surprise. It was the first time he had witnessed the Emperor display such overt protectiveness, a sentiment he found intriguing. He knew then that he would have to lend his full support to the young mage, a decision he affirmed with conviction. The Emperor's thoughts drifted, marveling at how much the young man had grown, recalling the praise even his own knights had bestowed upon him, and noting his recent industriousness, which now warranted a fitting reward. With a directness that brooked no argument, the Emperor leaned forward, demanding to know his desires. His voice resonated with authority, repeating the offer, asking if there was anything at all he wished for. Ian finally understood the depth of the Emperor's unwavering support, a realization that settled within him, leaving him to ponder what he truly desired. He considered his request, acknowledging that it might appear childish or inappropriate for his status. But he proceeded, saying, "I wish to explore the palace." The Emperor's golden eye showed a flicker of surprise as he repeated, "Look around." Ian then clarified his request, stating, "I wish to freely explore the palace and recount my experiences to my mother." He elaborated, and described the nature and grandeur of this palace. The Emperor, noting his sincerity, advised him, "There is no need for you to plead in such a manner." A contemplative look appeared on his face as he weighed the request, deciding, "I believe it should be permitted." Ian listened carefully, his expression neutral. With a firm nod, the Emperor stated, "Very well. I shall grant your request." Ian bowed respectfully in thanks, continuing, "As long as you are within the palace, I may go anywhere I desire, and you will." The Emperor then offered him a golden pass, clarifying, "You may also present this to another individual and instruct them to identify you." As he held the ornate pass, Ian reflected on the Emperor's generosity, thinking, "Is that truly all you desire? What else could he possibly wish for?" The Emperor, looking at Ian Page, states that he will reward him personally, and then instructs his attendants to bring something in, while Ian watches the scene unfold. A large, decorated chest is then carefully placed before them, suggesting it holds many valuable things. When the lid is opened, a bright stream of gold coins and shiny jewels pours out, showing a very grand gift from the Emperor. But the Emperor's kindness doesn't stop there, as he goes on to say that the palace maids, who work hard to keep the palace clean every day, will now be sent to Ian's own home, to make his mother comfortable. He lets out a quiet sigh, thinking that his mother won't have to worry about cleaning anymore, and he appreciates the Emperor's kind act. With a polite bow, Ian thanks the Emperor deeply, his words filling the large room. The conversation ends, leaving Ian to think about why the Emperor was so generous, a quiet question remaining between them. Later, as he walks through the rich hallways of the palace, he thinks deeply about what the Emperor has done. He thinks about how different this kindness is from before, feeling a strong doubt about why the Emperor is suddenly paying so much attention to him. Holding the golden pass, he feels a strong sense of being watched, believing he is probably being tested, like a piece in a bigger royal plan. The echoes of the past suggest that suspicion is not just a negative trait, but a fundamental principle for those who wish to rule and govern. A philosophy Emperor Ragnar himself had always supported. His words served as a constant reminder of the complex relationship between power and caution. Meanwhile, the steady sound of footsteps resonates through a large hall, as an individual proceeds further into the center of the imperial territory. An unseen but determined voice emphasizes the need to concentrate on important matters, recognizing the limited time available. Eventually, the journey concludes at an impressive estate, its grand entrance suggesting the influence held within. There, a serious guard greets the arriving magician, asking about the reason for his presence. Ian, realizing the Emperor is present, confirms his invitation and politely but firmly asks to enter. He mentally creates a cover story, intending to pretend to look for his mother while proceeding to his actual goal. After successfully gaining entry, he finally arrives at his destination, the impressive Empire's sanctuary. As he moves through the magnificent interior, the vastness of the imperial residence is evident. Suddenly, Emperor Ragnar's voice resonates, stating his affection for the place and proclaiming himself the only field page whose loyalty to the Emperor is unrivaled. He continues, expressing regret over his current position as only a prince with inadequate staff, but promises to make this sanctuary his own in the future. Emperor Ragnar reflects on his previous statement, a slight smile forming as he acknowledges the truth of his ambition. Meanwhile, deep within the Empire's sanctuary, a lone guard stands watch, a low growl escaping him as he senses an intruder. His eyes dart nervously, indicating his unease. The guard lets out a series of strained grunts and gasps, his body tensing as he prepares for an unseen threat. Ian Page listens as the guard complains that the other guards have vanished, clearly frustrated by his lack of cooperation, a hint of surprise crossing his face at the revelation. Ignoring the guard's complaints, Ian presses on, his mind focused on his objective, asking if the location he seeks is near the first Emperor's coffin, glowing particles of magic already beginning to swirl around him. The guard points vaguely into the distance, confirming that it should be somewhere in the vicinity, leaving Ian to continue his search through the vast, echoing halls. As he moves deeper into the sanctuary, Ian extends his senses, his hand glowing with a soft, ethereal light, the magical energy radiating from him. His golden eyes flash with intense magical power, the aura around him flaring as he finally pinpoints his target, a triumphant "found it," echoing in his mind. In a cosmic setting, Ian Page holds a glowing blue orb, looking intently at it. A look of understanding crosses his face as he states, "I found it." A glowing magical diagram appears on the ground, radiating arcane energy, suggesting a powerful spell or ritual. He then casts an ice spear spell, which impacts an unseen target. A slight smile forms on his face as he looks at the orb again, remarking, "Nice." He considers his next move, believing this power will be enough, as a voice from nearby expresses concern about their late-night journey. Douglas Heyman, looking surprised and worried, tries to understand what is happening, asking, "Who is that? Don't tell me." Ian then casts a disable spell from his glowing hand, sending out a wave of blue energy. A creaking sound is heard in the enclosed space as Douglas watches with surprise, and Ian looks back calmly. Ian, with a determined look, states his understanding, followed by a soft clicking sound. Douglas's heart beats faster with worry, his concerned expression reflecting the tension. Another quiet impact follows, the air thick with unspoken tension. Then a third, almost imperceptible, as if something significant has just been placed before royalty. A young man, Green River, stands poised, his gaze sharp as he considers the implications of the current situation, muttering that this place is a little too much. He addresses an unseen figure, his tone respectful yet firm, acknowledging their highness. Meanwhile, a young woman named Harry, the first prince's blood-related younger sister, reflects on the gravity of their position, noting that few people visit this place, and even fewer pass by it. She continues, her expression thoughtful, considering that there are only 3 descendants at this time, and no matter who it is, it cannot be Ragnar. Green River, with a determined glint in his eye, acknowledges their individual responsibilities, affirming that they each have their roles to play. The discussion between the two nobles continued, with Green River asking, "Your Highness, why don't you let the Emperor know about it?" Harry, however, quickly dismissed the suggestion, stating firmly, "Won't do." She then elaborated on her reasoning, asking, "Don't you agree that the royal tower is dangerous?" Green River, seemingly understanding her apprehension, offered reassurance, "I'm sure the Emperor would understand." He then added, "Since it's about the first prince and my older sister." His words seemed to resonate, as he simply replied, "I understand." Harry, however, abruptly changed the subject, inquiring, "Have you memorized the basic spells I taught you last time?" She then proceeded to demonstrate, her hands glowing with a soft light, explaining, "Let the mana flow like this." A soft, ethereal glow surrounded her as she continued her instruction, her movements graceful and precise. Abruptly, the scene shifted to Ian Page, who looked up with a startled expression, a single exclamation escaping his lips. Returning to Harry and Green River, she continued her instruction, her focus unwavering as she guided him through the magical principles. This interaction defines the relationship between Harry and Green River, a princess and her loyal companion, connected by their shared magical studies and royal obligations. Elsewhere, in what appears to be a past memory, a younger Emperor Ragnar stands by a window, his gaze distant as he contemplates his journey, having followed his brother into both academia and military service. A past decision weighed heavily, as a life had been quietly ended. Elsewhere in the palace, Princess Harry pondered the existence of such a powerful magician, finding it difficult to comprehend. Across the complex, Ian Page considered the matter, recognizing that private magic education, outside the formal institutions, was a known practice. Returning to the princess, she addressed Green River, assuming his knowledge of such matters, but he humbly confessed his lack of awareness. A moment of quiet contemplation settled upon her, her face showing deep thought. Her calm demeanor abruptly shifted, a hint of worry appearing as Green River, observing her change, asked what was wrong. Her gaze swept the surroundings, a disturbing idea taking root. She believed she had heard something, and the thought of being observed was deeply unsettling. Feeling a sudden urgency, she chose to end their lesson for the day, her thoughts still preoccupied with the potential intrusion. The royal tower itself conveyed a sense of exclusivity, as only royalty was allowed within its confines. Its magnificent, columned interiors stood as a symbol of this privilege, both grand and awe-inspiring. As he walked through these halls, Ian Page felt a distinct relief that he was not involved in the princess-class activities. A faint smirk touched his lips, his face showing a hint of amusement and disinterest. Her good performance is probably because she is the Mary of the Tower, which protects Ragnar. With a determined look, the princess continues her practice. Meanwhile, the imperial gardens are peaceful, bathed in afternoon light. Ian Page worries about the princess getting sick in the tower and asks Aaron if he has thoroughly checked the area. Aaron replies that his check was enough. Satisfied, Ian agrees. The sky stretches above them as they move through the palace grounds. Walking away from the building, Ian stops and calls to Aaron. Inside a grand room, he asks where his mother and the others are. Aaron explains that Lady Page is talking with an imperial palace servant, and Douglas is looking at the imperial mansion, which makes Ian gasp. From a high place, both Ian and Aaron look down at the huge building, amazed by its size, and Ian quietly says, "Oh." After observing the imperial mansion, Ian Page finds himself in a room, speaking with a man. The man then asks, "Mr. Reed, could I have a chat with you for a moment?" Reed then walks away, leaving Ian alone. Ian watches him leave, thinking, he's so busy, he doesn't have time to chat. His thoughts then shift to a dangerous potion, described as the Poison Master's creation, which can paralyze the body and cause the user to lose their mind. Later, Ian approaches Reed again, holding a pouch with ingredients, his face serious. Reed, surprised, asks him, "Are you telling me you're making a secret potion with such a dangerous mushroom?" Ian clarifies, stating that while a poison potion is possible, he needs a secret potion, asking if Reed has heard about intervention magic. He looks at Reed intently, waiting for his response. Ian repeats his request. "I need a secret potion that will help avoid that magic." Reed, understanding the difficulty, replies, "Be possible? I would need to experiment. Is it urgent?" Ian is left alone again, deep in thought, considering the urgency of his request. A gentle knock sounds in the room. As Douglas Heyman informs Ian that the Ivory Tower has sent a message for him, Ian turns to receive the letter. Taking it into his hands with a thoughtful expression, the letter begins, "Dear Magician Ian Page." It explains the Ivory Tower's wish for him to attend the official entrance exam for the Academy for Gifted Magicians, noting that it would be difficult to place such a talented magician with other beginner students. He reads the message, a slight smile forming on his face. The letter concludes by requesting his acceptance to be on the Ivory Tower's name list. Douglas then states that he has only a week to prepare, prompting a surprised "Huh? A week?" from Ian. Despite the short notice, Ian confidently declares that 1 week will be no problem for him. However, the immediate consequence dawns on him. He will have to give up his sleeping time. A sigh escapes him. Having accepted the invitation from the Ivory Tower, Ian Page stands in quiet contemplation, his expression thoughtful as he processes the implications of his decision. The journey continued, a grand carriage making its way through lush, sun-drenched landscapes. As a potent elixir, missing its stone heart component, caused his own heart to beat faster and faster, its effects lasting for 2 intense hours. He held the potion, feeling the surge of power coursing through him. Finally, a magnificent tower rose into view, its architecture hinting at a place of truly decent quality, a beacon in the distance. The journey continued, the anticipation building with every passing moment, drawing him closer to his destination, until the towering structure dominated the horizon, its intricate details becoming clearer. Finally, the carriage pulled up to a magnificent building, its grand entrance awaiting his arrival, a testament to the quality of this place. Where Green River stood ready to greet him, a polite smile gracing his lips as he announced, "You're here, Sir Ian Page." Stepping into the magnificent Ivory Tower, Ian Page is greeted by Green River, who extends a formal welcome to the legendary institution. With a polite smile, Green River offers to guide him, declaring his intention to lead Ian directly to the tower's owner. The interior of the tower is a breathtaking sight, with grand arches and an enormous, intricate chandelier dominating the vast space. As they begin their journey through the opulent halls, Ian admits that this is his first time witnessing the legendary Tower of Magicians, a place that seems to transcend the very flow of time. Indeed, the tower's architecture and ambience suggest a timeless quality, as if it has remained unchanged through countless eras. Green River confirms this sentiment, explaining that the tower's essence remains constant, whether in the past or the future. As they continue deeper into the structure, the sheer scale of the Ivory Tower becomes even more apparent, its grandeur stretching endlessly before them. Green River then draws Ian's attention to a peculiar feature, a large, ornate golden plate embedded in the floor. He explains that this isn't just decoration. It's a crucial device that allows movement between the tower's many floors, a magical elevator designed to transport its occupants with ease. This magical golden plate serves as the primary means of vertical travel, allowing direct access to any floor within the colossal structure. As the golden plate before him began to glow, Green River spoke, asking him to step onto the plate and explaining that the top floor, where the owner of the ivory tower lived, was their destination. He encouraged Ian to come along, stating it was the highest floor. Ian stepped onto the glowing platform, and a blue magic circle appeared beneath him. The platform then began to rise quickly, with lines of light indicating their fast movement upwards. The feeling of moving so fast was strong, as Ian was carried upwards, covering a great distance quickly. During the fast ride, he held a small, glowing orb in his hand, its gentle light standing out against the quick movement of the elevator. The upward journey continued, with blue magical energy surrounding them, wrapping him in a field of magic. He looked up, with a mix of wonder and excitement in his eyes, as they neared their destination. Finally, the elevator stopped in front of huge, detailed doors, their old and grand appearance suggesting the power and secrets inside. With a slow, creaking sound, the large doors began to open, showing a bright light that hinted at something even more impressive inside. Green River, now standing next to the open entrance, smiled warmly, his voice friendly as he greeted Ian by name. Green River's thanks were clear, as he expressed gratitude for Ian accepting the invitation to the tower. As the grand doors opened, he found himself facing an unexpected challenge, a requirement that seemed to catch him off guard, prompting a sharp, almost pained sound from him. Yet, the man before him, Green River, calmly assured him there was no need to be scared, despite the palpable tension in the air. This wasn't just a casual meeting. It was a mandatory trial, a little requirement every magician joining the ivory tower had to endure. Seated in a plush chair, Ian could feel the weight of the situation. Judging by the atmosphere, it looked like they were about to put him through his paces. He voiced his understanding, stating his belief that they simply wanted to make sure he was truly worthy of joining them. Green River, however, was not easily swayed, acknowledging Ian's talents but confessing his suspicion due to the young man's age. He then challenged the very notion of Ian's reputation, questioning if they were truly speaking of the same Ian who had accomplished more than any other bloodline. Ian listened, his gaze lowered, a silent resolve forming within him. If it was suspicion, he would ensure it wouldn't hinder him now. Looking up, his eyes sharp, he directly confronted Green River, asking if he truly didn't trust him. Green River's expression hardened, demanding to know how Ian could possibly ask such a thing, emphasizing that barbaric actions had no place within the sacred tower. With a glint in his eye and a subtle gesture of his hand, Ian calmly retorted that he was merely doing what he was asked, and that Green River had asked him to answer. Rising to his feet, a new confidence radiating from him, Ian declared, "Now, then," signaling a shift in the power dynamic of their exchange. The interrogation continued, a voice calmly stating, "Nothing born in red soil. Your father was a barbarian, and your mother, she was a slave." Green River, maintaining his steady gaze, then asked, "Is any of this information false?" However, Douglas Heyman, also known as Reed, interrupted, his expression serious. "I wish to know the truth of your relation with the rest of the world, Reed." He continued, disclosing a dark part of his own history. "I was an alchemist who was involved with a slave trading ring, and the Lord Commander ordered him to me." Green River, still seeking answers, then inquired about the institution, the old ivory tower. Douglas Heyman, his eyes distant, confessed, "I always wanted to go." Green River then changed the subject, asking, "Remember Cecilia?" Douglas Heyman confirmed, "Of course," before continuing his pointed questions to Ian. "You saw her and became a magician communicating. My crystal was just counted as a tool to kill you. Do you swear that none of this is false?" Ian, meeting his gaze with firm resolve, simply replied, "I swear." Douglas Heyman then pressed further, his voice carrying a final challenge. "Do you swear that you'll use magic?" Ian, now fully engaged, countered with a question of his own, referring to the spells Douglas Heyman had just listed. Fireball, Spirit Summoning, and Frost Nova. "Do you know how to use it?" Douglas Heyman, with a confident expression, replied, "I am a magician." Ian, matching his confidence, echoed, "I am a magician." As the interrogation continued, a voice pressed him, asking if he was going to say he couldn't do it. Ian Page looked up, a slight smile on his face, and quietly stated that he had simply thought of them. Douglas Heyman, still looking doubtful, asked for an example, his expression unchanged. Then, a small, bright fireball appeared in the palm of his hand, glowing with intense heat. Holding the fireball, he calmly explained that he had just imagined it, and then it became real. A quiet murmur spread among them as Douglas Heyman looked surprised, and Green River watched with interest. The quiet talking continued, as the magic he showed seemed to be so strong that it even fooled the Empire's magic detection spells. Douglas Heyman's face showed a growing understanding, realizing that the young man was telling the truth. With Ian's eyes glowing blue, Douglas Heyman wondered if the stories of the legendary 8th-class magician were true, or if they were just exaggerated. The young mage stayed calm, the small fireball still burning in his hand, as he waited for their reaction. Douglas Heyman looked down, thinking hard, unable to understand how such a young person could have so much magic power. His eyes suddenly widened as he looked up, a profound understanding dawning on him. A woman with red hair walks through a grand hall, her movements indicating a clear sense of urgency. Turning to an unseen individual, her tone sharp, she questions why they continue to ask irrelevant questions. Someone tries to calm her, but Helene dismisses them, stating they should stop wasting time and ask the important question. At that moment, Ian steps forward, his expression calm, and states that the owner of the house is present, and they are all there to speak with him. Turning to face Helene, his voice calm but firm, he asks, "What are you?" A woman's voice broke the silence, asking directly, "Tell us yourself with that mouth. What are you?" The red-haired woman stood, looking down at the young man seated before her, expecting an answer. The young man, looking annoyed, replied, "Why are you investigating such trivial matters?" Helene, however, was not deterred, stating firmly, "Yes, she was the youngest fourth-class magician before I came." She had been the youngest fourth-class magician before he arrived, and her nickname, the Lady of Fire, suggested a very aggressive personality. Her gaze was steady, as she continued to press the point. He, however, responded with a question of his own. "Don't you already know?" Helene's expression shifted to one of surprise, and she asked, "What?" She then pointed to a document, stating, "It's even written over there." With growing frustration, she addressed Ian Page directly. "And Ian Page, how dare you not know about it?" In response, his hand clenched into a tight fist, a clear sign of his growing irritation. Helene's anger flares, her voice filled with indignation. A commanding voice abruptly interrupts, stopping her outburst as the Emperor sits on his throne, a faint blue glow surrounding the standing figure. Despite the interruption, Helene remains firm, her expression resolute. Ian Page then speaks to her, asking one last question. The Emperor observes the conversation, his expression serious and firm. As Helene's past is mentioned, Ian's thoughts return to a memory, remembering when he first met her, kneeling in shame. He recalls the soldier who disrespected the Emperor's mother, and the disgrace that followed for her. A disgraced figure, kneeling in darkness, appears in his mind. A disturbing memory emerges. The soldier, found later, was said to be begging for his life frantically. The Emperor's voice resonates in his thoughts, asking about his connection to that soldier's death. Ian remembers that the former Emperor, unexpectedly, did not punish the man, but instead, a younger version of him sits by himself, looking sad and deep in thought. He recalls a profound lesson, a philosophy that shaped his approach to magic and life. Even without overconfidence in his own magic, he always considered a third possibility, a backup plan for every situation. Especially in situations where his freedom was at stake, he would always seek out that extra layer of protection, that unforeseen path. A memory surfaces of a younger self, seated on a grand chair, reflecting on the truth that if his heart wasn't calm, he couldn't even move his fingertips. The thought echoes, a chilling reminder of a past conversation, since he had said that during their last meeting. His golden eyes narrow, a flicker of concern crossing his face as he wonders about the medicine's effects now. A voice from the past cuts through his thoughts, promising, "I'll tell you the answer you want to hear." The flashback deepens, revealing a young Ian, still a child, sitting alone in a vast, ornate room, his small figure dwarfed by the imposing furniture, a picture of quiet thought. The scene shifts to a tense gathering, Helene standing with a group of stern-faced men, while Ian watches, a silent observer to a dramatic revelation, the air thick with unspoken accusations. The tension escalates, the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone present, as the truth, or perhaps a carefully crafted deception, begins to unravel. A single, incredulous thought pierces the silence. A lie? An ornate room, devoid of occupants, sets a formal scene. An elderly man, seated, addresses someone off-panel, asserting, "You have no relation to it." Ian Page listens intently, his expression thoughtful. The elder then thanks him for his forthrightness, saying, "Thank you for your honest answer to the hard question." He then reveals a previous deception. "Oh, when I said that the small trickle of mana enters your body, that was all made up." He explains his intent, stating, "I used a lie to get you to open up and get you to say something. I did not mean to deceive you." This was done to understand a mysterious power, about which little information was known. Consequently, the elder suggests, they must approach the matter with more care. The conversation progresses, now concerning Ian's current abilities and his future development. A device positioned before them is then introduced as a mana battery. Its purpose, he elaborates, is to recharge the component responsible for storing mana. Currently, the immense amount of mana within it causes the device to glow with a distinct blue hue. Ian Page is instructed to add his mana into the device, a mana battery. Roi, the elder, states his intention, to see your limit. The mana battery begins to fill, indicating that the stored mana is now equivalent to that of a third-class mage. The expectation is to add an amount of mana similar to that of a second-class master. Considering his options, Ian believes his next action will be the best decision. He reasons that if he shows the expected amount of mana, he can minimize suspicion and be placed in a suitable class. However, a question lingers in his mind. Why? He recalls his past, where he was merely an 8th-class mage, not a philosopher or an inspiring leader. The mana battery now glows a vibrant blue, indicating its full capacity, and Ian reflects on his past, a life where he simply survived and lived a calculated existence. Holding the glowing blue mana battery, he realizes he could give up everything else. A conceptual image of him, now holding his sword, appears, representing power, authority, and glory. He confirms his resolve, that he could give up everything he had. Regarding magic, Ian Page understood his own capabilities. He channeled his mana, his eyes glowing with a bright blue light, thinking to himself, I don't know about other magic, but my magic is superior to all others. His strong belief filled the room, a quiet sign of the immense power he held. The mana battery, unable to hold the strong energy, started to glow with a bright blue light, its surface shaking from the pressure. Waves of pure magic came from the overfilled device, looking as if it would break apart. With loud, sudden cracks, the battery's crystal shell started to break, blue energy shooting out from the splits. Finally, with a very loud explosion, the mana battery broke into many pieces of bright blue light, spreading across the room. Roi, seeing the powerful destruction, gasped in surprise, a long sound of wonder leaving his mouth as the energy spread around them. The bright blue energy slowly disappeared, leaving only the empty stand where the battery had been. A moment of shocked quiet filled the air, the sounds of the explosion still fading. Ian, bent over and breathing hard, tried to catch his breath, the huge use of mana making him tired. His chest rose and fell with each difficult breath, a clear sign of the great power he had just used. As the aftermath of Ian's powerful display settled, Roi remained silent, processing the overwhelming mana he had just observed. The implications of such power were evident, even to the older, gray-haired man standing next to him, who gazed in disbelief at the broken mana battery. Elsewhere, Helene, her eyes wide with surprise, found herself unable to understand the event, questioning how such a thing could be possible. The mana battery, built to handle the power of a 3rd-class master, had been completely destroyed by the immense force. A clear understanding then came to her, a startling truth. The young magician's power was much greater than she had ever conceived. In a hushed tone, she voiced her disbelief. Was this young man truly more powerful than a 3rd-class master? Unaware of the deep impression he had left, Ian quietly departed, his abilities temporarily unavailable and reset due to the great effort of his magic, leaving behind stunned observers. A fist slams down on the table, the speaker's frustration evident as the discussion shifts to Ian Page, confirming that the rumors about him were true. Green River, his expression serious, states that Ian is also a 4th-class magician. The blonde man with golden eyes describes Ian's reaction to the Emperor's death, noting it was clearly the reaction of someone who had lived. Green River asks for clarification, wondering what the blonde man means by that. The blonde man insists they must control Ian Page before he becomes a greater threat. Green River continues, detailing how Ian entered and graduated from the academy within 5 years. Margaret, her gaze sharp, reminds them of their agreement to take the Emperor's side and custody. Douglas Heyman offers a different perspective, suggesting that Ian Page spending time at the academy would not be a waste of time. Green River counters, expressing concern that Ian served as a role model to other students, and with all high-class magicians already strong, he questions how nobles and young magicians would react. Douglas concludes, emphasizing that whether Ian Page saved a soldier or prevented a death, his actions have significant consequences. A blonde-haired noble, his red eyes reflecting a thoughtful intensity, dismisses the current situation, stating that it is not a significant problem. However, the atmosphere in the grand room remains tense, as other voices express concern, pointing out that the subject of their discussion has already begun to challenge the existing status quo, and his future loyalty remains unknown. The blonde noble, however, reiterates his position, emphasizing that despite his impressive talents, the individual is still young, and the stability of the empire should be their highest priority. Across the table, a hooded figure with glowing red eyes speaks, stating that greater power necessitates greater responsibility. A pale hand, likely belonging to the hooded figure, then holds up a glowing golden orb, a visual confirmation of the rumors that the individual has rapidly graduated from the tower, now a 4th-class magician, and is considered particularly dangerous. The blonde noble, however, responds, suggesting that due to his talent and age, it would be ill-advised for him to receive specialized education from a high-class magician, a point that receives positive affirmation from the other participants. Around the large table, the nobles murmur in agreement, their consensus forming as one of them states, expected, indeed. The blonde noble, appearing content with the consensus, simply states, good. A soft PSH sound is heard, as a pale hand, wearing a ring, makes a subtle gesture, suggesting a quiet acknowledgement or perhaps a hidden agenda. A grand, ornate building stands, its architecture suggesting a place of significant power in history, and within its walls, a young prodigy's reputation is beginning to spread. He thinks to himself that it is remarkable to be recognized as a high-class magician at such a young age, a thought that brings him a sense of quiet satisfaction. Later, as he walks through the grand halls with an older woman, he greets her, saying, "Oh, we meet again." The woman, with a gentle expression, replies, Well, I heard the news. A slight smile forms on his face as he confirms that you're a high-class magician. Yes, that is what happened. Meanwhile, a young girl with glasses, having overheard the conversation, gasps in astonishment. Amazing. A high-class magician at the age of 12. Her mind races as she processes the incredible news, thinking, that terrifying rumor was true. What kind of rumor is going around? The older woman, perhaps sensing the girl's presence or simply continuing the conversation, adds, you've probably already heard the news. The young magician, with a knowing look, replies, you can dream more comfortably. You are my senior. The girl with glasses, still processing the revelation, lets out a surprised sound, her eyes wide with awe at the mention of senior. A young girl with glasses speaks with astonishment, relaying the rumors that Ian Page is a genius magician possessing a special ability, and that he is destined for the Ivory Tower. The young man confirms her words, acknowledging the truth of the reports. Inside the Grand Magic Academy, the young man stands with other students, all considered class magicians. Elsewhere, the girl with glasses expresses her disbelief, stating that the rumors are more than just words, almost making her feel crazy, and she believes this is due to Herbert. The young magician looks out a window, his mind on his friends from the academy. He stands quietly among his peers, lost in thought. A girl with purple hair looks on with a somber expression, remembering that she once stood in that very spot. The dark-haired girl departs from the students, a narration box revealing that all of them would be assassinated by a cultist group in the past few months. Under an orange sky, a blonde woman stands by a tombstone in a graveyard. The young man, now thoughtful, considers the possibility of returning to the past to change events, believing he could succeed. The girl with glasses, looking surprised, states that his idea is merely his personal opinion. The words linger as the view shifts to an empty, grand chamber, eliciting a quiet thought. This is the spacious room, hinting at past magical endeavors, stretches out before him, a place of great power and potential. A younger Ian Page looks upon the room, a realization dawning as he recalls. This was my room in my past life too. Cecilia explains the room's purpose, mentioning that when she creates too much magic, Green River uses his second-class magic to clean it. She continues, her voice clear. The owner wants you to use this room for your personal use. With a nod from Green River, Cecilia instructs him. Then, please wait here. I will go get the magician who is in charge of you. The heavy door clicks shut with a thud, leaving him alone in the chamber. He stands in the center of the room, a thoughtful expression on his young face, observing every detail of the familiar space. His hand reaches out, touching the surface of a desk, a wistful smile on his lips as he thinks. It has been a while. The young mage surveys his surroundings, the magical energy of the room surrounding him, a silent promise of power. This moment, this room, holds a deep meaning, for he realizes, I got this room 7 years earlier than I did in the past. Now that I obtained with the authority of a high-class magician, Ian Page understands there is one crucial task he must accomplish. He walks with clear intent, aiming to establish a new contract within the host tower. The academy's grand, sunlit halls extend ahead, guiding him to his goal. Upon reaching a clean desk, he makes ready to execute his strategy. He considers the Emperor's trust, which appointed him head of the Magic Tower, a loyalty he believes he can always rely on. However, his thoughts turn to Herbert, considering who will eventually be under his care. A dark, swirling energy appears to rise from his memories, as he considers the troubling idea that Herbert could be directly at fault for previous misfortunes. The immense, high-class magical force radiates around him, a symbol of the power he desires. His hand extends, attracted to the luminous core of power, understanding that simply reaching the same rank is insufficient. He must achieve a rank even higher than his opponent. With firm determination, he looks at the tall building, promising to overcome his foe definitively. He recognizes the necessity of acting like a well-behaved child for the time being, understanding that even he cannot exceed a fifth-class magician in his present, small form. A soft sigh escapes him, reflecting the patience needed for his great goal. Still focused on his ambitions, he is suddenly startled by an unseen presence, a sharp sound echoing through the air. A questioning hello escapes his lips, followed by an internal uncertainty as he tries to understand the situation. A look of surprise then crosses his face, as if realizing the identity of the person who has just arrived. Indeed, the thought echoes, they had to send her, confirming the importance of this arrival. And through an ornate doorway, Helene steps into view, her voice coolly stating, "It's been a while," as she enters. A subtle smirk plays on her lips, hinting at a history between them. Before she delivers a cutting remark, "You arrogant brat," her words filled with contempt. Helene, a woman with red hair, greets someone with a slight smirk, noting that it has been a while since she last saw her assistant. Ian Page, looking somewhat displeased, responds to her. "Helene, so they had to send him." He then lets out a sharp sound, indicating his annoyance. Helene, maintaining her sharp expression, continues to speak, accusing him of being the one who cleaned up her battery, as he looks away, appearing slightly defensive. Her gaze intensifies, and she remarks, "I see that you're even more arrogant." Ian, now looking towards a door, seems to concede, albeit reluctantly, saying, "Well, fine." He then lists what he considers basic academic requirements: standard manners, history, magic theory. All the stuff that you should learn from the academy. Still looking away, he plainly states his main point. But the thing is, I don't want to learn the theory. His words trail off, but Helene, her sharp gaze still on him, delivers a final, direct question. What use is a magician like you anyway? A stack of books falls to the ground, their pages scattering with a loud noise. Helene, holding a book, states that boring things are not her strength, and the only thing she can teach him is this. Her words linger, and he seems to acknowledge them, as if he has already won this argument. She turns to him, her face showing disappointment, and says she had high hopes for him, but thinks he is quite naive and a total airhead. She adds, with a touch of sadness, that if he had stayed quiet, he would have received her approval. However, her expression changes slightly, and she starts to admit, but you were able to. Ian Page listens carefully, his eyes fixed on her as he thinks about what she said, silently agreeing with her. Helene's serious expression changes slightly, and she says, well, since I came as your teacher, let me teach you something. Behind her, a fiery scene appears, matching the power of her next words as she teaches him. There are many kinds of magicians. A magician who fights for combat. Some magicians spend their lives studying magic, believing their power comes only from their knowledge. Others, like the figures shown, just get stronger through practice, leaving those who only study behind. Helene asks, looking at him, what do you think she is? Ian Page quickly answers, saying she is the first kind of magician. She shifts her weight, looking confident, as if amused by his answer. She corrects him, saying she finds no one else good in her area, and that she is different from other magicians, the only high-class one. Turning, she starts to walk away, telling him she will teach him her way. With a simple instruction, she tells him to follow her. Ian Page, knowing he has no other option, agrees that he has no right to refuse. Under the open sky, they travel to a new place. They arrive at a large, sunny courtyard, and Helene immediately asks him if he understands what he needs to do there. Her eyes shining, she directly challenges him, telling him to come at her and make her want to teach him. Even in his past life, Ian Page found himself constantly challenged by Helene, her presence always pushing him to his limits. He recalls how even then, she would annoy him with her relentless challenges, a pattern that now repeats itself. But this time, things are different. He hasn't lost his memories, and he's ready to face her head on. He's determined to cut her off, to change the outcome of their destined rivalry. Back in the present, Helene gestures towards Ian, correcting herself as she refers to him, while a concerned observer wonders if it's truly safe for him to fight her. Helene, however, dismisses their worries with a confident smirk, assuring them that she has prepared them to be decent spectators. She then turns to Ian, asking if they should get going, to which he replies, you go first, prompting her to declare she'll wait as his teacher. Ian looks at her, a hint of skepticism in his expression, asking if she's truly sure about her approach. Helene simply walks away, her confidence unwavering, muttering about who should be worried for whom. With a decisive gesture of her hand, she signals the start of their training. Ian, extending his arm in acceptance, declares that he won't refuse her challenge. He closes his eyes, taking a deep breath, mentally preparing himself for the intense magical instruction to come. Helene, observing him, asks if he has seen enough, then questions if he desires a head start in their upcoming training. Her expression hardens, and she refers to him with a sharp, dismissive tone, before announcing her true intentions. With a surge of raw power, she then announces her intention to demonstrate her abilities, as two glowing, sun-like orbs of energy begin to form around her. Her body then becomes enveloped in a bright, orange magical aura, radiating intense heat and power. Ian's eyes glow with a vivid electric blue, reflecting his internal magical response to the unfolding display, as the air around him crackles. Suddenly, with a powerful burst, a large ice block materializes, its surface gleaming with cold energy. He is swiftly trapped within the solid ice, his form now a faint outline inside the transparent prison, while Helene calmly observes. Her gaze steady on the newly formed ice block, she watches the immediate outcome of her spell. With a slight smirk, she asks if he is finished, challenging his resolve. Then, clarifying the task, she explains that he must discover a method to escape the ice block. The ice block is described as the most potent defensive magic, designed to completely shield its user, offering unparalleled protection. However, a significant drawback exists. While the spell is active, the caster falls into a deep sleep, rendering them unable to employ any other magical abilities. Helene, her hand glowing with blue light, delivers a final, serious warning, stating that this is the last opportunity. A low magical hum emanates from her, her expression firm and resolute. Behind her, Roi and Margaret react with surprise, startled by the sudden increase in magical energy. Roi, looking concerned, questions the origin of the strange noise. Helene stands next to the large, newly formed ice block, her hand still faintly glowing with blue magic. Suddenly, her eyes widen in disbelief, a silent thought of no way crossing her mind. Inside the transparent ice, Ian Page, his eyes filled with determination, begins to move, an unexpected feat that leaves Helene astonished. A thought arises, questioning the impossible. How can he still move within the ice block? Ian's feet shift, a subtle movement within the frozen confines. The ice block responds, and cracks begin to spread across its surface with a sharp, tearing sound. From behind, Ian's figure is visible, the ice around him fracturing under an unseen pressure. Helene's face shows a mix of shock and frustration as she utters a curse. A large, ornate building stands against the sky, its spires reaching high. Then the scene changes to Helene, who is suddenly thrown through the air by an unseen force, her body twisting in a blur of movement. The force keeps pushing her, and she cries out as she fights against the invisible attack, her body a streak against the chaotic background. Until she crashes into a huge, fiery explosion, which covers her in a burst of hot energy and smoke. Despite the harsh attack, Helene pushes through the pain, letting out a determined sound as she prepares herself, her face showing strong resolve. Meanwhile, in a very different, blue-lit place, Ian Page stands, looking far away as he remembers a name, softly saying Akira. He keeps thinking, the name repeating in his mind as he tries to understand its meaning, a soft blue light coming from him. Back in the fiery chaos, Helene looks down at a glowing magic circle, her mind filled with disbelief, wondering how her enemy managed to do something so difficult. The situation feels impossible to her, as she tries to understand not only the movement, but also the great power of the attack. Before she can fully think, another unseen force hits her, making her stumble back with a strong impact. Helene's eyes open wide in complete shock and fear, the constant attack leaving her surprised and unprotected. Helene cries out as the magical vines continue to tighten their grip around her, a brutal continuation of the unseen assault. The green tendrils constrict around her neck, her face contorting in a desperate struggle against the suffocating magic. Meanwhile, Ian Page stands impassively above her, his presence radiating a subtle magical aura as he observes her plight. Even in her predicament, Helene can't help but acknowledge his power, muttering that he truly lives up to his reputation as the Empire's strongest mage. A faint blue glow emanates from his hand, a silent declaration that this skirmish is already decided. Helene remains trapped, her surprise evident as she struggles against the magical bonds. With a dismissive tone, Ian Page addresses her, telling her to get her dirty vines off him now. Helene hesitates, a flicker of defiance in her eyes, unwilling to let things end so embarrassingly. She challenges him further, demanding to know his true identity, sensing there's more to him than meets the eye. Ignoring her plea, Ian Page raises his hand, a powerful blue aura flaring around it as he prepares to unleash his magic. With a sharp crackle, a burst of golden particles erupts from his palm, instantly shattering the binding vines. The magical energy swirls and dissipates, leaving Helene free but stunned by the sheer force of his power. Still processing the impossible display of power, she calls out, struggling to comprehend the identity of the young man before her, wondering if this kid could truly be the legendary mage. As the ash-blonde mage kneels within a glowing blue magic circle, she utters his name, the recognition dawning on her, while yellow lightning crackles around him. With his hand now glowing with blue energy, she challenges the nature of their encounter, stating that it was supposed to be a duel. The immense power emanating from him causes her face to twist in fear, as the true extent of his abilities becomes apparent. His eyes now glowing with blue light, Ian's voice rings out, a firm command for her to stop. Then, with a bright flash and a loud crackle, he unleashes a powerful torrent of golden lightning, surrounding himself in magical energy. As the chaotic energy swirls around him, he stands up, the blue magical particles fading into the air, leaving him surrounded by the crackling electricity. His eye, glowing blue amidst the golden lightning, shows an intense and powerful resolve. The air crackles and distorts, as the powerful lightning magic continues to surge, showcasing his immense strength. Then, a sudden silence falls, a brief pause after the powerful display. However, the event has drawn attention, as a small group of people observe from afar, their presence suggesting more developments to come. The ground beneath them crumbles and shifts, as the very air seems to tear apart from the force of the magic. Helene stares down at the young man, who slowly rises from the debris. A single, disbelieving thought echoing in her mind. Had she truly survived? A manic, almost hysterical laugh escapes her lips, followed by the heavy tread of his approach. "Stay away," she cries, recoiling instinctively as Ian Page extends a hand towards her. He pauses, his voice calm and measured, "Lady Helene." His grip firm, he cups her face, his gaze unwavering as he asks, "Is there anything else?" His eyes, now glowing with an intense blue light, betray the immense power simmering beneath his composed exterior. A sudden, overwhelming force slams into her, sending her reeling backward, her body collapsing to the ground. Turning away from her fallen form, Ian declares, "Then I'll take my leave for now." A memory surfaces, taking us back to a younger Ian Page and Helene, standing together as another man approaches them with an air of authority. The man's tone is dismissive, demanding to know why he's even being asked, a subtle tremor of frustration passing through the young boy. He brazenly tells the young Ian to get out of his way, but the boy, despite his youth, attempts to assert himself, though his words trail off. With a casual stride, the man walks away, leaving the young Ian and Helene behind, the memory fading as quickly as it appeared. Back in the present, a grand tower stands sentinel against the vibrant sunset, a silent witness to the unfolding drama. Ian's thoughts drift to Helene, a question forming in his mind about her current state after their last encounter. He stands before an older, bearded man, listening intently to the report. The man confirms Helene's dire condition, revealing she's been refusing food for days, a consequence of her recent ordeal. A pained expression crosses Ian's face as he reflects on his actions, acknowledging that her greed led her to him, and her suffering is a direct result, yet he made no effort to save her. Turning away from the older man, he walks, a profound realization settling within him. He never truly believed he could achieve his revenge with his own hands. His thoughts shift to the very essence of power, visualizing it as a chained wolf, a force so immense that no one could truly control it, not even its wielder. It remains untamed, a wild, primal entity. Lost in thought, he considers a necessary meeting and the acquisition of a powerful tool. A quiet click of a door signals an entrance, drawing his attention. He turns, holding a book, and asks if the expected person has arrived. An older man, staff in hand, enters with a bow, apologizing for his delay. Addressing him as my prince, the elder stands before the young royal. Ian rises, still holding the book, his attention now on the man. The advisor then requests a favor from him, awaiting his response. The subject of this request is the individual known as that magician. Ian crosses his arms, standing thoughtfully, considering the matter carefully. A grand, imposing building stands against the sky, its detailed design suggesting a place of great learning and power. As two people walk across polished floors, their steps marking the beginning of an important journey. A younger Ian Page looks up at Aaron, who asks, "Did I tell you already?" With a gentle smile, Aaron confirms, "Yes, let's start heading out." Inside the grand halls, he repeats his purpose. "Ian, I'm taking you to the academy." The young boy, filled with a mix of excitement and resolve, responds, "I'll be back, Captain." Later, sitting alone, a thoughtful expression crosses Ian's face, his thoughts turning to someone else's new start. He murmurs, "Today is already Douglas' first day of school." However, it was Ian himself who was accepted into the Royal Alchemist Academy at the very top of his group, his application quickly securing his place, leaving no doubt that his talent was truly exceptional. The one disadvantage of the royal family, a condition that appeared quite rare, had always been a part of Ian's life. Because of this, he had been able to live a normal life for a while, a time that now felt distant. Even then, he had been facing monsters, a constant struggle. A sigh escapes him, as he understands that to regain his full power, his body needs solitude. A thought crosses his mind, asking if he can truly just rest like this. His thoughts are interrupted by a knock, bringing him back to reality. A maid stands at the door, addressing him as Sir Ian. She holds out a tray, informing him that an invitation from the palace has arrived. His eyes widen in surprise, as he processes the unexpected invitation. A close-up shows the red wax seal, its design suggesting its importance. The title of First Prince, once a distant concept, now carried a new and unsettling significance. Under the silent full moon, the night sky stretched, vast and indifferent, reflecting the journey that lay before him. Eventually, the grand palace came into view, its ancient stones illuminated by the soft glow of many lights, a symbol of power and intrigue. Stepping from the carriage, he wondered if the first prince truly understood the implications of inviting him to such a place, considering the unspoken rule that mages not born of nobility were never invited to these parties. A flicker of doubt crossed his face, as he questioned whether the prince truly understood the gravity of his actions. This invitation from the first prince was truly unprecedented, not just because he was a mage, but because he had never associated with other nobles. As he walked through the palace grounds, the weight of his unique position settled upon him, a prince whose interest in the political realm was non-existent. Indeed, his disinterest was so profound that he had always chased away any nobles who tried to interfere with him, earning him a reputation as a troublesome, reclusive figure, the black sheep of the first prince's family. He was a recluse, a prince who seemed to deliberately avoid the throne, despite his immense talent and intelligence, remaining a mystery to those around him. His gaze, sharp and knowing, reflected the complex burden of his lineage and his chosen path. Still contemplating the unexpected invitation, he felt a lingering uncertainty about the true intentions behind it. Though he recognized the potential advantages this unusual proactive gesture could offer him, he reflected on his past, a life largely spent in solitude, never forming close bonds, which made him question the underlying reasons for this sudden engagement. Upon entering the lavish hall, he was formally welcomed by Oliver Ragwood, a prominent officer, who announced, "Welcome, Ian Page." The palace interior was resplendent, bathed in a warm, golden glow, with elaborate chandeliers illuminating the vast, ornate ceilings, and a majestic staircase ascending gracefully, a testament to the building's splendor. Various nobles, including Harry and Helene, were gathered, their hushed conversations filling the air, all awaiting the commencement of the evening's main event. Green River, standing among the distinguished guests, maintained a calm presence, before his voice resonated clearly through the hall, proclaiming, the first prince will make his entrance. A collective stir went through the assembled company, their gazes drawn towards the grand entryway. Footsteps sound on a luxurious surface, as rose petals are scattered across an opulent floor, leading the way through a grand hall. From a grand balcony, the emperor surveys the assembled guests below. His gaze is directed downwards, towards the assembled nobles. He addresses the crowd, expressing gratitude for their presence. He then mentions the anticipated arrival of the emperor's guest, a figure they are all expecting. Declaring it would be rude to keep him waiting, he announces his intention to introduce someone to them all today. A subtle, knowing smile crosses his face as he prepares for the introduction. Among the guests, Harry watches with anticipation, realizing the significance of the moment. The special guest of the emperor is about to be revealed. With a grand gesture, the emperor announces his esteemed guest, the magician. The name rings out clearly, Ian Page. The grand hall awaits his presence. As the introduction concludes, Emperor Ragnar, with a formal gesture, extends a welcome to Ian. Ian, however, responds with a dismissive retort, stating his return is not for the emperor. Internally, Ian curses his own impulsiveness, regretting the words that just slipped out. He muses that this entire elaborate welcome must be a calculated move orchestrated by the emperor, not the prince. The emperor continues, acknowledging the recent incident Ian caused in the ivory tower. He expresses amusement at Ian's rapid ascent to a high-class mage, imagining the frustration of the other guild masters. A subtle gesture of the emperor's hand accompanies his words. He then reminisces about their first encounter in Moglian, recalling how Ian stood out from all the other magicians. With a direct gaze, the emperor asks Ian if there's anything he wishes to convey. Ian, though still wary of his rival, admits that he considers the emperor a truly great mage. The intricate details of the emperor's regal attire shimmer, reflecting the light of the grand hall. Yet, beneath his composed exterior, Ian harbors a chilling resolve, revealing his true, murderous intent. The emperor, with a commanding gesture, directs Ian Page to follow him. Ian's expression shifts to one of clear surprise, his eyes, now a striking blue, reflecting the unexpected nature of the emperor's command. Amidst the bustling social gathering, a new figure approaches, his gaze fixed on the renowned magician, thinking, now, this man. A sudden exclamation escapes him, his eyes widening in awe. Stepping forward with a respectful bow, Harry Greenriver introduces himself, expressing his pleasure at finally meeting Ian. He continues, his voice filled with admiration, acknowledging the widespread fame of Ian's name and the many good things he's heard. Though he regrets only being able to offer greetings at this moment, Greenriver sincerely apologizes for his previous lack of knowledge about Sir Ian Page, the 8th-class magician. He assures Ian that he can share everything he knows, even the stories about the 8th-class magician that might bore him, adding that he has a strong heart and will work harder to ensure Ian is not bored. With a hopeful smile, Greenriver expresses his desire to exchange many words with Ian. He hopes their time together will be enjoyable and meaningful, thanking Ian for his generous proposal. A soft rustle of fabric accompanies his words, as Greenriver concludes his earnest address. Ian listens intently, his expression thoughtful as he processes Greenriver's words. A young woman, Lady Cecilia, stands with a gentle smile, receiving words of encouragement. Meanwhile, in a grand hall, Greenriver addresses a group of nobles, remarking on the first prince's leadership, as he appears to be managing the project quite effectively. Cecilia, however, contemplates her own role, deciding it might be best to withdraw before she inadvertently causes any trouble. Elsewhere, a sudden sound startles Ian Page, causing him to flinch. He turns, a look of surprise crossing his face, as he encounters someone unexpected. It's Oliver Ragwood, who greets him formally, acknowledging his presence. Oliver then addresses him directly, using his name. Ian, noticing Oliver's attire, compliments him, remarking on how splendid he looks in his formal clothes. Oliver, however, reveals the reason for his formal appearance, stating it was a direct order from His Highness. Ian listens intently, processing this information. Oliver then makes a subtle, almost playful remark, adding a touch of intrigue to their conversation. He stands before Greenriver, remarking that perhaps he should not have gone to the terrace, to which the other man responds with a simple hum. He considers the word rumor, finding it to hold a certain significance, and senses that there is more to the situation than is immediately apparent. His thoughts turn to Helene, the High Mage of the Ivory Tower, a woman whose expression is one of deep sorrow, her presence marked by an air of melancholy. He recalls hearing about her, a woman of considerable power and influence, her reputation well known. The prince's words resonate in his memory, a significant disclosure concerning the Ivory Tower, and he comprehends the seriousness of the matter. He had always assumed that such vital information, particularly regarding the Ivory Tower, would be kept confidential, a well-protected secret. However, he now possesses information that should be inaccessible to him, a young man with knowledge beyond his age. He considers the consequences, the burden of this secret weighing on him, questioning how this situation could have arisen. Helene, the High Mage, is evidently involved in something much larger than herself, her destiny linked to the tower's concealed realities. A moment of surprise registers on his face as he processes the details, the unexpected nature of the situation catching him unaware. He remembers the phrase, "You even trusted Helene," who was called the High Mage of the Ivory Tower, a statement that now carries additional significance, and he understands the extent of the betrayal. Green River, still facing him, voices his surprise, confessing his ignorance regarding the true nature of the Ivory Tower's secrets, his tone reflecting his disbelief. A critical question is posed, demanding a clear stance. Which side will you choose? Beneath the expansive, star-filled night sky, a loyal knight kneels before him, maintaining a steadfast posture as he awaits an answer. Ian Page listens as the knight states that his identity or the manner in which he attained 8th class magic at a young age is irrelevant to the current situation. Instead, the knight's gaze fixes on him, asking if he intends to support the Ivory Tower. Ian Page considers the question meaningless, questioning how one could provide a definitive answer under these circumstances. However, Green River, as a knight serving his prince, insists on receiving an answer, his loyalty unwavering. He needs to ascertain if Ian is an ally or an adversary. This is Green River, one of the Silver Knights, the devoted knight who remained with the first prince until his final moments. Despite the gravity, Ian Page hesitates, confessing that he is still undecided on his loyalty. Green River then offers a suggestion, indicating he could give a hint to Sir Oliver, but with a significant condition. His counsel is unambiguous. Ian should align himself with the 5th prince. With that weighty advice, Ian Page stands alone, the consequences of the decision beginning to settle upon him. He listens intently, his expression unreadable, as the knight continues to speak. Green River explains that he used magic to ensure their conversation remained private, but that was not sufficient, as he still has a request to make. Ian, ever the pragmatist, questions if this is a satisfactory proposal, prompting Green River to confirm his unwavering loyalty to the first prince. He then asks what kind of request the young mage means, his gaze sharp and assessing. Green River clarifies that his request is not for himself, but for the first prince, a matter of utmost importance. He explains that the first prince is currently in a precarious position, and he cannot simply abandon him. The knight then reveals his true intention. He wants Ian to take the first prince's place and protect him from the shadows. Ian, however, remains unconvinced, stating that he gains nothing from such a request, his expression reflecting his skepticism. Green River then produces a shimmering necklace, its intricate design catching the light as he holds it out. He explains that this isn't just any trinket. It was given to him by the queen herself on the day he was appointed as the first prince's bodyguard. With a solemn gesture, Green River kneels before Ian, offering the necklace as a symbol of his earnest plea. He declares the necklace to be a unique item, one of a kind, emphasizing its value and the gravity of his request. Green River spoke of a royal treasure, something he had never encountered in his previous life. Its history was shrouded in mystery, like an empty frame waiting for a portrait. He revealed a golden necklace with a blue gem, explaining that the last person to possess it was the queen. Despite its royal provenance, the necklace was not mentioned on any records pertaining to the deceased queen. Green River explained that the queen had given it to him to serve as her eyes and ears, emphasizing his sincerity and hoping Ian would not undermine his request. Ian considered the implications of the offer, his expression thoughtful. After a moment, he reached for the necklace, stating clearly, "I will take the necklace." The necklace was then transferred into his hand. Suddenly, a loud, explosive sound echoed, accompanied by a burst of fiery energy. Both men reacted with surprise to the unexpected and violent disturbance. A sudden, violent burst of red and orange energy rips through the air, a loud sound echoing through the space. As a fiery explosion erupts behind Emperor Ragnar, causing him to recoil in shock, with Captain Ragwood standing close by. Both men are visibly stunned, their faces showing alarm at the sudden, overwhelming force. The Emperor instinctively raises an arm, bracing against the intense heat and pressure of the continuing fire. As Captain Ragwood's eye widens in panic, his voice cutting through the chaos with a desperate cry, "Your Highness." The Emperor's ornate uniform is caught in the dynamic swirl of energy, highlighting the sudden, violent shift in their reality. Another powerful sound reverberates, signaling a complete environmental shift. And Captain Ragwood, still reeling from the shock, urgently questions the Emperor's presence in this new, opulent setting. "Are you, Your Highness?" Before he snaps his attention to something off-panel, shouting, "Captain, over here." Emperor Ragnar, now composed, surveys the grand, unfamiliar hall, his thoughts turning to the implications of their sudden arrival. How would something like this be in this place? Still reeling from their sudden displacement, he immediately checks on his companion, asking if he is all right. While the captain, equally concerned, reiterates his question about the Emperor's well-being. Assuring him that he is perfectly fine, the Emperor then returns the inquiry, asking if the captain has sustained any injuries. Meanwhile, a series of emergency communication magic circles had already activated, and he had swiftly dispatched word to the Royal Palace Guard. This emergency communication was directed specifically to the Royal Palace itself. A structure protected by an ancient magic circle, passed down through generations, even surviving the darkest times. That formidable defense alone rendered the Royal Palace impenetrable, and the very fact that the magic circle had been activated meant every soldier and magician was now gathering there. As the Emperor observes the scene, he notices a younger man, Ian, seemingly searching for something, prompting him to ask what he is looking for. He repeats the question, his gaze fixed on Ian. With a focused expression, Ian extends his hand, manifesting a shimmering mana barrier. A powerful shield now enveloping them, protecting them from any further unforeseen threats. He explains the process of injecting mana into a person. And his mother, surprised, asks if he has learned such a technique, to which he replies that he has learned a lot, and she asks if he can maintain it. A soft glow emanates from his hand, indicating the manipulation of energy, as he demonstrates his control. His mother, still processing his power, then states, she has something important to tell him. Without hesitation, he agrees, ready to listen. His mother then reveals that she has been assigned to the second palace, a development that surprises him. Meanwhile, a dark narrative unfolds, detailing the tragic fate of Cecilia, a woman whose life was shattered by a single incident, leaving her to endure great suffering. The narration continues, emphasizing that her suffering was not a matter of choice, but a cruel twist of fate, and that she needed to survive, no matter the cost. A solemn expression crosses Green River's face, his gaze distant and contemplative. The scene shifts to a formidable, ancient prison, its stone walls looming ominously, a place where hope struggles to survive. The heavy footsteps of a guard resound through the desolate corridors, underscoring the oppressive atmosphere. Inside a cell, RWA addresses Cecilia, noting it has been a long time and expressing surprise that she is still alive, his words carrying a chilling undertone. Imprisoned and vulnerable, Cecilia looks up, her voice barely a whisper as she questions the identity of her unexpected visitor. Standing outside her cell, a cloaked figure reveals himself. It's Daniel, a familiar face in her time of need. A wave of desperate hope washes over her, as she cries out his name, pleading for immediate release. Without hesitation, Daniel offers his unwavering support, a simple, of course, echoing his resolve. But a deeper concern grips Cecilia, her gaze falling as she warns him of RWA's ominous knowledge, a secret that could jeopardize everything. This knowledge, she realizes, stems from the very essence of Cold Walker and the people within it. Daniel's expression turns serious, his brow furrowing as he processes the gravity of her words. Clutching the cold bars, Cecilia emphasizes the chilling truth. RWA possesses information about a mana seal, a secret that should have been unknown to both of them. Yet, this particular detail, the true nature of the mana seal, is something RWA still doesn't fully comprehend. Daniel, recognizing the urgency, cuts to the chase, insisting they have no time for further discussion and must leave immediately. He pauses, a flicker of thought crossing his face, still pondering the implications of her revelation. With a soft creak, the cell door swings open, revealing an empty space as Cecilia's imprisonment comes to an end. Despite her recent ordeal, Cecilia endures the pain, a fresh cut visible on her cheek as she lets out a quiet scoff. However, her defiance is short-lived as a blade flashes, striking her with considerable force, causing blood to spray. The impact sends her backward, the assailant's blade dripping with blood as she falls, a sharp sound of annoyance escaping her. She falls heavily to the ground, a cry of pain escaping her, her hand reaching out in desperation. Regaining her composure, she remembers the words of her ally, who mentioned the Emperor's difficult situation and how his recent treaties were not well received. Blood still stains her mouth, a clear reminder of the harsh reality, but her expression becomes firm with determination. As she turns to leave, a trail of blood marking her path, she questions if her ally will be able to accomplish their goal. With a final, lingering look back, she says goodbye, her words carrying a sense of closure. Her eyes, now filled with strong determination, show her unwavering commitment to their shared goal. Suddenly, a cloaked figure moves with great speed, lunging forward, their sword aimed with deadly intent at an unsuspecting person. The blade strikes with brutal force, cutting through its target, as a large amount of blood bursts from where it hit. The blonde woman, completely surprised, recoils in shock and pain, her eyes wide as she asks who her attacker is. Ian Page stands with a determined expression, his arms crossed. A small, glowing blue crystal appears in his hand, and a thought forms in his mind. I'm going to kill you with my own hands. He begins to walk, leaving a shimmering trail of ice behind him, the air around him crackling with magic. His thoughts shift to a past conversation with Emperor Ragnar, where he had said, Ragnar, I'm so fortunate that I got to meet you today. However, a deeper thought persisted. I wanted to kill you with my own hands. He remembers Ragnar's question, wait, wouldn't it be better for you to keep me alive? To which he had replied, how can I not work with someone who never played by the rules? A thought then occurred to him. There's still 10 years left until that happens. Back in the present, the mage continues his walk, the magical ice crunching softly beneath his feet. His resolve strengthens as he remembers a promise. I promised myself that when I returned, he thinks. The glowing crystal in his hand pulses, a silent reminder of his goal. I would put everything back. With a final crunch of ice, he continues his journey, his path illuminated by his strong will. He recalls a moment of intense power, his eyes glowing with an icy blue light, blood staining his lips as he speaks a name or a spell. Hus. Ikiro. In the present, with a changed appearance, he gently carries a young boy through a stone corridor, his footsteps making soft sounds. His attention focuses as his hand moves towards a glowing blue symbol on the boy's neck, a mana seal he recognizes, understanding its meaning. He looks down at the unconscious boy, as a quiet murmuring begins among the surrounding figures, the seriousness of the situation becoming clear. The murmuring grows louder as he stands with two cloaked companions, all of them looking at the mysterious boy. A deep frown appears on Ian Page's face, his thoughts quickly turning to the strange discovery. Ian Page, what is this? Kneeling next to the boy, he looks closely at the strange sight with increasing concern. What in the world is it? The boy lies motionless on the cold stone, surrounded by a soft, blue glow coming from the strange seal. Within the palace, a noble inquires about any issues currently affecting the royal residence. He then asks what is occurring with the royal scribe and what issue he is causing within the palace. With a firm tone, he requests his master to answer his question. As other nobles stand by, the emperor asks if they believe the royal scribe could have acted without his knowledge, or if he is unaware of the palace's true condition. The emperor, Ragnar, states that he can no longer trust the royal scribe. He then commands that from now on, the tower master and all related authorities are to investigate the royal scribe, asking if his instructions are clear. Bowing, Roi replies that he will follow the emperor's command. From his throne, Ragnar dismisses him, allowing him to leave. As he turns to leave, Roi silently promises his master that he will not fail him. His footsteps echo as the noble departs. Left alone, Emperor Ragnar remarks that he will meet again with someone. Ian Page considers the situation, understanding that the emperor and the royal scribe are currently at odds. Meanwhile, the emperor begins to speak, stating that thanks to Ian's efforts, competency, they were able to achieve prosperity for the first time. Ian, however, considers that it doesn't matter if a magician is high-ranked or low-ranked. The important thing is the information they hold. Standing before the emperor, he hears the ruler reiterate that he and the royal scribe are having problems, a matter of clear concern. As such, the emperor states he wishes to personally show his appreciation to Ian, and the reward he intends to give is significant. Standing next to Green River, who holds a scroll, Ian listens as the emperor praises his competency. The intricate details of Ian's noble attire are visible as the discussion proceeds. Green River then speaks, mentioning Ian's ancestor, the sole magician of the imperial family, a significant historical figure. With a slight smile, the emperor then explains that due to his ancestor's testament, he cannot reward anyone who is not a member of the imperial family. Ian's expression becomes thoughtful, realizing he should have known it wouldn't be that simple to receive an emperor's reward, or perhaps, the emperor simply didn't wish to give him anything. Before the current era, there was a legend, a name spoken with reverence, Mitchell Green River, a figure whose existence connected the past and future of magic. He was once known as the greatest magician in the imperial capital, his power and skill unrivaled. His magical consistency was legendary, a force so profound that even in a past life, such an item would have been an impossible find. Now, a young woman with blonde hair presents a magnificent garment, asking if he would like to try it on right now. The intricate fabric, woven with arcane symbols, shimmers with latent power. As Mitchell Green River watches with a knowing smile, a soft chuckle escaping his lips. The robe's hem brushes the ground, its rich blue fabric hinting at its grandeur. And he remarks with amusement that it's quite big on him now, but will eventually fit his body. Ian Page's blue eyes widen slightly as he takes in the garment, a robe intricately embroidered with magical spells. With a determined look, he declares he will make it fit his body right now. A soft hum of energy begins to emanate from him, a subtle shimmer of magic gathering around his form. Then, with a powerful surge, a brilliant blue aura erupts from his body, enveloping him in a dazzling display of raw magical force. He stands amidst shimmering blue particles, his gaze fixed on his hands. While nearby, 3 men gasp in astonishment, one exclaiming, "How did he do that?" From his grand throne, the emperor watches, a stern expression on his face. As a subtle, satisfied smile plays across the young magician's lips. The king's favor, it seems, is immeasurable. A faint blue aura now surrounds the emperor on his throne, under a vast, open sky, overlooking the sprawling, majestic palace. Later, as he strolls through the palace gardens, a noblewoman approaches, calling out, "Excuse me, Sir Ian." He politely declines her overtures, stating, "I respectfully decline your kindness. Please don't concern yourself with me." But she persists, reaching out to grasp his foot. Her expression urgent, she tries to convey, "I actually wanted to tell you something about." He reflects on a past occasion, regretting his inability to express gratitude to His Highness due to his busy schedule, and hopes for understanding. Returning to the present, he swiftly dismisses the noblewoman's urgent communication, stating that the matter she wished to discuss would not occur. Meanwhile, the noblewoman, Margaret, smiles with a cheerful demeanor, offering a reassuring thumbs up. Her pleasant expression persists, maintaining a cheerful front. With a quiet step, he departs from the conversation. A voice acknowledges a significant achievement, a great accomplishment that is recognized. He walks away, casting a brief glance over his shoulder, his expression neutral. The emperor, with a dignified presence, speaks to him, praising his accomplishments. The emperor continues, stating that due to his efforts, the imperial family's safety was preserved. In a gesture of deep respect, he bows before the emperor, acknowledging the praise. The emperor's voice resonates, stating that Ian Page's accomplishments during the incident were unparalleled. As the emperor concludes, a new, blonde-haired noble approaches with a quiet step, apologizing for his delayed introduction and suggesting his identity might already be known. With a formal bow, he introduces himself, stating, "But I would formally introduce myself to you." Meanwhile, the emperor, clad in his regal military uniform, offers a respectful bow, his expression one of deep consideration. A wine glass tumbles, spilling its crimson contents, as he muses, "My old friend." Ian stands by a crackling fireplace, his back to the viewer, lost in thought. A delicate teacup clinks, the sound echoing the quiet tension in the room. The emperor's ornate uniform gleams, a symbol of his authority and the weight of his gratitude. He offers a warm, appreciative smile, his gaze fixed on the young mage. Later, Margaret appears slightly taken aback, her blue eyes wide with a hint of surprise. The emperor, still in his formal attire, continues his address, acknowledging, although it's late. Margaret's expression turns thoughtful as she considers the implications of his words, thinking, "It's way too early for me to be inviting him." With a gesture of sincere appreciation, the emperor declares, "In appreciation towards you for protecting the safety of the empire and the imperial family in the Muslim territory. And I would like to invite you to the lunchbox today to show my thanks." Turning to Margaret, he extends the invitation, asking, "Would you be able to join me for lunch?" As the emperor considers his next move, a gentle hand takes hold, a voice interjecting with a polite but firm refusal. Lady Margaret, with a subtle smile, informs him that Ian already has lunch plans with her today, leaving the young mage looking utterly surprised by her sudden declaration. The emperor, ever composed, simply asks if tomorrow would work instead, attempting to reschedule the coveted invitation. But Ian, his expression troubled, offers a deep apology, explaining that even tomorrow would be impossible. A subtle glow emanates from his eye as Margaret's grip on his hand tightens, a silent pressure accompanying his refusal. Margaret acknowledges his words with a knowing "I see," though she can't help but express her disappointment at the missed opportunity. The emperor watches the pair, his back to the viewer, as Margaret continues to lament the unfortunate circumstances, her hands still firmly clasped around Ian's. Ian reiterates his need to decline for the time being, while the emperor, with a gracious nod, expresses his pleasure at having met the young sir. With the formal pleasantries concluded, Margaret leads Ian away from the emperor, who stands watching their departure, a thoughtful expression on his face. Their footsteps echo softly as they continue to walk away, leaving the emperor behind. Margaret then turns back to Ian, a determined glint in her eye, addressing him directly. With a slight, awkward smile, she apologizes for speaking without thinking things through, her expression softening as she faces the still uncomfortable mage. Margaret remains by his side, but Ian's thoughts are elsewhere, a single name resonating within him, the name of Ragnar. He recalls meeting the emperor in his youth, a figure who was meant to be a friend and guide. A resolute expression settles on his features as he internally declares his intention to stop Ragnar, no matter what, before his influence can expand. He envisions himself confronting the emperor, bound by the very influence he seeks to control, determined that Ragnar will not be able to take a single step forward. Looking down, his resolve solidifies, he will be the one to stop him. His stance, though subtle, reflects his unwavering commitment, a silent declaration of his impending challenge. His final, unwavering thought echoes with profound certainty, he will be Ragnar's opponent in this life. 5 years pass, and the Grand Palace stands majestically, leading into the opulent halls of its sprawling library, a sanctuary of knowledge. Within its towering shelves, a younger Ian Page studies a thick book, sighing as he confesses he has no idea what it means. His frustration grows as he questions, why can't they write it so everyone can understand? His tutor, Aaron, approaches, explaining that the book, written by the first emperor, describes how to rule well and the methods of ruling, topics that even the first prince and he have not yet mastered. Ian looks around, surrounded by tall stacks of books, a daunting realization dawning on him as he quietly says, "All these books, huh?" The vast amount of knowledge required, including economics, politics, and social affairs, burdens him, making him question, are all these books truly necessary to read? Overwhelmed and exhausted, he throws his head back in frustration, stating, "Ugh, I don't care anymore." Aaron, ever the patient mentor, gently reminds him, "Today isn't the day, teacher, your highness." Leaving the palace library behind, Ian Page and his tutor, Aaron, walk through the palace corridors. Aaron reminds him, "Let's go, master. Today is the last day of the month, and master starts right." Aaron considers the implications, his expression thoughtful. Meanwhile, Ian's mind is already elsewhere, a hint of anticipation in his eyes as he says, they should be doing it right now. As they continue their walk, Ian's gaze is fixed on something beyond the frame, and he says, I haven't watched them in a while. Their footsteps echo softly, carrying them further into the palace grounds. Soon, they arrive at their destination, the Second Royal Knight's headquarters, the main training grounds. The imposing fortress stands tall, its battlements reaching towards the sky. A sigh of relief escapes Ian, his expression softening as he takes in the scene, a quiet determination forming within him. Phew, till the end. His attention is drawn to a knight in training, a young man with dark brown hair, his body coiled with intense focus as he practices a powerful sword strike, the blade glinting under the sun. The knight's grip on his sword tightens, his resolve palpable as he mutters, "I swear." Watching the intense training, Ian's golden eyes narrow, a sharp, calculating glint reflecting the knight's dedication. The knight's blade cut through the air, but then a powerful force erupted, cracking the ground and sending ice shards outward. The training area was filled with shimmering ice fragments, showing the immense power that had been released. In the middle of the ice storm, the knight was surprised and tried to keep his balance, his body pushed back by the sudden force as the ground kept breaking around him. With a loud cry, he firmly plants his foot, trying to stand firm against the invisible force that seemed to be too much for him. The air around him still hums with energy, as many sharp ice shards keep falling, each one a possible deadly weapon. Turning quickly, the knight blocks the attack with his sword, moving fast to defend himself against the constant ice attack. His boots dig deep into the broken ground, the strong force of the impact almost knocking him off balance. The ground itself groans under the pressure, breaking more into a messy pattern of cracks, each crack showing the huge power being used. Even with the constant attack, the knight stays strong, holding his sword tightly, a quiet promise to keep fighting shown on his determined face. With a strong swing, he attacks back, his sword moving through the air with accuracy, trying to break the magic attack. The force of his hit shakes the ground, showing his strong will against the powerful magic. His sword hits an invisible shield, sending a wave of energy out, a last effort to get past the magic defense. As the dust starts to clear, the knight stands steady, his body not moving. A quiet guard in the middle of the magic storms remains, ready for what will happen next. A blade cuts through the air with great speed, leaving a trail of light. A swift, decisive movement creates a whooshing sound, a blur of motion showing a fast strike. The knight appears from the blur, his dark clothes standing out against the energy around him, his sword ready for the next attack. His gaze is sharp and steady, showing his power, his focus complete as he waits for the next danger. Suddenly, a voice announces the next attack, and the knight is pushed back by an unseen force, a strong impact shaking the ground. A huge explosion of bright, orange flames bursts forth, covering everything, its great power threatening to destroy the area. Still, in the middle of the fire, the knight stands strong, a loud cry leaving his mouth as he faces the intense heat, his shape outlined by the burning flames. His eyes, wide with surprise and strong will, show the bright light of the magic attack. With a quick, practiced move, he lifts his sword, the blade vibrating with hidden energy, ready to face the fire attack directly. He swings, and the sword cuts a bright path through the fire, pushing back the flames with a loud crash, showing his great skill. Even with the great power against him, his determination grows stronger, a quiet thought in his mind. He believes he can reach his goal. His gaze becomes sharp, looking through the chaos, as he gets ready for the last, important move, knowing that winning is at the very end of this tough fight. The unnamed knight launched a powerful fire attack, consuming the mage in a burst of orange flames and energy, directly challenging his magical abilities. However, before the knight could advance, an invisible force struck him, causing him to recoil with a surprised shout. Recovering quickly, the knight immediately counterattacked, his sword moving swiftly as he closed the distance and struck the mage. The blade struck with significant force, causing blood to spray as the mage absorbed the full impact of the attack. The mage was thrown through the air, his body a quick blur against the hazy background. He eventually collapsed to the ground, with the knight standing triumphantly over his defeated foe, his sword still ready. A brief silence filled the air as dust particles floated in the remaining magical light, and the battle's intensity lessened. The knight's eyes, focused and steady, surveyed the area, evaluating the result of his powerful blow. Suddenly, a hand emerged from the dust, and the mage's voice broke the silence with a clear, "Well done." Ian Page then rose from the ground, his body now surrounded by a bright, shimmering blue aura, with glowing particles moving around him. The knight observed him, his expression neutral, as the mage stood completely recovered, his power emanating from him. Ian Page then spoke again, his words left unspoken, suggesting the real reason for their intense fight. The unnamed knight reflects on the recent combat, acknowledging that he was unable to inflict any significant damage. Admitting he wasn't even able to make a scratch, he looks down, a pensive expression settling on his features. Across from him, Ian Page stands, clad in a blue cloak, her blonde hair framing her face. Ian's voice interrupts his contemplation, pointing out that his attacks were aimed at vital points, and that any actual injury would have been fatal. Ian maintains a composed expression as she delivers her words. The knight offers a necklace, stating it is a fee, and expresses his gratitude for Ian's assistance throughout the years. With a sincere look, he emphasizes that the assistance he has been given is worth far more than the necklace. He holds a respectful posture. Ian, watching him, comments on his significant development over the last year, and states her gladness that he is physically well. The knight then addresses Ian, requesting permission to ask a single question. Ian promptly agrees, her composure undisturbed. The knight's eyes fix on Ian as he asks about her current level of strength. Ian Page, the Empire's greatest magician, considers his current status as a 5th-class master. In his previous life, he had reached this level around the age of 20, which was quite fast, but his goal had always been to become at least a 6th-class master. Now he questions if 5th-class master is his limit. Clenching his fists tightly, he hopes his body can endure the strain of his training. His reputation as the Empire's greatest magician is well known, a sentiment shared by the knight who stands before him. The knight addresses him respectfully as Your Highness, acknowledging his noble status. Another noble, with blonde hair, approaches, noting that today marks their last sparring match, a final practice session between them. The blonde noble then invites them to breakfast, a casual offer that hints at the Emperor's immense strength, which is at least 8th class, a level of power where he could give an opponent a chance to escape even when fighting with one hand. The knight apologizes for his performance, but the fact remains that Ian Page is the greatest magician, which motivates the knight to become a 7th-class master soon. Upon hearing this declaration, the blonde noble sighs, acknowledging the knight's determination as unavoidable. The blonde noble suggests they eat together next time, and Ian agrees to join them if he can find the time. Then, Ian turns and walks away, his thoughts focused on his next steps. As he takes his leave, a powerful magical aura erupts from Ian Page, propelling him skyward with an explosive burst of energy. Leaving the grand castle behind as he ascends into the clear blue sky, a lone figure against the vast expanse. He pauses mid-air, a silent promise hanging in the air as he declares, "I'll be back." His golden eyes gleam with an unspoken resolve, his expression a mix of determination and quiet confidence, a testament to the power he now wields. With another surge of energy, he vanishes into the distance, leaving behind only shimmering trails of magic, a fleeting glimpse of his extraordinary abilities. Back at the castle, the unnamed blonde noble and the unnamed knight stand together, their gazes fixed on the spot where Ian disappeared, a silent acknowledgement of the profound power they just witnessed. The blonde noble muses aloud, recalling the spellbook Ian possessed, a tome that granted him the power of flight, a feat he'd never seen from any other mage, concluding that Ian Page was undeniably an extraordinary magician. Meanwhile, the knight turns to his companion, his expression earnest, requesting, "Grandmaster, please tell me your orders." He continues, reflecting on Ian's uncanny perception, how his eyes seemed to see right through him with ease, a realization that solidified his belief that Ian was no ordinary mage, leaving him speechless and without an adequate response. Far above, Ian Page continues his journey, a vast, intricate magical symbol glowing behind him as he internally declares his unwavering resolve. He cannot be defeated by anyone, for the gap between them is simply too wide to overcome. Back on the ground, the blonde noble, still processing Ian's power, adds a crucial caveat to his assessment. This overwhelming strength was particularly true when facing other magicians. A subtle smirk plays on Ian Page's lips as he continues his flight, his confidence radiating, fully aware of the immense power he now commands. The knight, reflecting on the recent events, considers the power he had just observed, finding it to be, in his estimation, manageable. His thoughtful expression persists, indicating the deep impression Ian's abilities had made.